It's working. I know, but I think the large screen is working.
Okay. Can you do the screen sharing so long later?
You are enabled. You are enabled.
It's loud.
Did I just do this?
Can't-
You mute yourself, Vishka, for now.
I need to
Hi, everyone.
Morning, Francesca. How are you?
Good, thanks. Good. Nice to see you. I'm just checking, make sure I'm set up correctly. I'm going to use the sound going into the computer and the sound going into my head, if you know what I'm saying. Is the sound good right
Okay.
now?
Yeah, it's quite clear.
Okay, good. I hope I don't look too disheveled.
Not yet.
Okay, good.
Judy? Judy? It's on the bottom right next to the Zoom function. The little screen. You just click on the little screen.
Okay, now we'll be expecting people to start coming on. So we should then be sending out the greetings and all.
Hi, Maya. Hi, everyone.
Hi, too.
My
Can I just ask before people come in, can you just in terms of the program, can you just give me the amount of time I have? And
Yes,
all that? Yeah.
yes, you have 15 minutes.
Okay. Okay, that's a lot. Great.
Okay.
Okay. And
Because
Gabriel, will you talk about
Yes.
I'll talk about sustainable consumption, yeah?
Yes,
Okay.
great.
Maybe you can set a little bit of the scene and then I'll do a bit more of the scene.
Thank you. I will.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you. Bye. Judy, can you put the slides into slide mode? Carmela.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Gabriel. Hi,
Good
Esmaira.
morning.
Gabriel, you're on mute.
Morning, everyone, and welcome to Adriana and Asmaira.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you. And on screen, we also have the one who's just come on screen, our Executive Director, Francesca De Gasperis.
Good morning. So nice to meet you. Thank you so much
Likewise.
for coming.
No, thanks for the invitation. We're starting at 10, at 10:30 or 10?
On your time, 10:30.
Ah, okay.
So thank you for coming early. We appreciate it.
Okay, great. And while we wait, Francesca, now that we have you here, I'm sure you already know my colleague Asmaira, but I don't know you well. But I'm very happy to learn through Yad and Asmaira all the work you are doing. And Gabriel, thanks so much for the invitation. So, you know, we have now this new resolution on sustainable lifestyles. And there is also a request to have regional dialogues to look at different views. We're offline, right? So we can talk.
We are in the I think there are only one or two participants who have joined us, but mostly it's SAFSI staff. Yeah.
Okay, if not, we talk later. But yeah, just to say we are really excited and want to see how we can work closely and that you help us in implementing the resolution, and more than anything in creating more action on how to really make the change towards sustainable lifestyles and environmental protection. Yeah.
I would love to talk with you more about that. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And thanks for bringing it up as well. We do need to meet and talk some more. Thank you. Adriana, are you based in Nairobi? Okay. You've gone mute, but yes, I hear you.
Okay. I'm
Thank
here. I'm
you.
going to switch off my camera and get some water. Thank you.
Good morning and welcome to those that are joining us. We just need a few minutes to have other participants joining in. We look forward to starting as soon as about 9:30. We should be starting off. We'll be starting off in a short while, and I do hope that most of the participants will have joined by then. Good morning once again, and welcome everyone. We are going to start off on our sustainable consumption workshop, and I would like to welcome all those that are in the room now. What we are looking at is a situation where the world has gone into the consumption mode, and we are having the disastrous effects that are coming in. So we would need to have a look at it from a faith perspective and start talking about this. I think we can go now off the presenter mode on the program so that we can begin to have the speakers coming onto the screen. We are supposed to have Bishop Takalani to give us an opening prayer, and also Imam Arafat also should be on the call. I've been speaking to them now. I'm hoping that they are now on the call. Imam, if you are on the call, may you please assist and give us the opening prayer. Hello.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Malik is trying to join, but he seems to be having problems with. I can do the open prayer, it's fine.
Please go ahead. Thank you.
Let's all pray. Father, in the mighty name of Jesus Christ, Father, we come before your throne of grace right now, and we just want to invite you in this space as we're about to do this webinar. May you be here with us. May everything that we learn today, God, may we go out and establish it. Amen.
Thank you very much, Mati. Welcome, everybody, and may I call this meeting to order so that we begin. And thank you, everyone, for coming on board. We are talking about sustainable consumption. As people of faith and none, we are concerned about the levels of consumption that we have that have become very much unsustainable and have had consequences on the different communities that are represented also in this meeting. So today we have an array of people who are going to be speaking to us and speaking with us in a discussion also, so that we can find a way where, as people of faith, we are able to make a contribution that is positive and also impact positively on this world, so that we will hold the quick descent that we have in terms of the climate crisis. I would like now to invite to speak to us the Executive Director for SAFC, Francesca De Gasperis, to give us the welcome remarks, as well as to also introduce to us the speakers that we have on this call. Over to you, Francesca.
Morning, everyone. Thank you, Gabriel, for opening the session today, and welcome to everyone who's here attending. My name is Francesca de Gasperis. I'm the Executive Director of SAFC, the Southern African Faith Communities Environment Institute. We are your hosts today, and we're extremely privileged to have an incredible lineup of speakers today, and it's going to be a very exciting webinar. And I want to pay a special tribute to Gabriel and my colleagues for arranging this online session. It's really impressive. And we're so excited to have everyone with us. So welcome and thank you so much for attending, all the speakers and the participants. SAFC, I just want to give you a little short rundown on who we are, the organization, for those of you who are new to SAFC. And then, as Gabriel said, I'm also going to be telling you about our esteemed panel of speakers today. So SAFC is the Southern African Faith Communities Environment Institute, and we were founded in 2005 by an environmental educator and a bishop who decided that faiths were becoming incredibly disconnected from the environment and from their sacred task. And all faiths have this golden thread that runs through all faiths of do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. And in the community of life, and when SAFC talks about the community of life, we're not just talking about the human community. We're talking about all of creation, all living beings and non-living beings too. It's a very inclusive definition of community. The forests and the mountains and the whole of the earth system is a living sacred space. And so this is about our connection with that space. And so we were founded as a multi-faith regional entity. We're not really Southern Africa exactly anymore. As you will see, there's many people here from East Africa and sometimes West Africa too. So we do see ourselves as not being bordered in the same way, perhaps, as our maps show us. But really, we're working with all people of faith, as Gabriel said, all faiths and none. The indigenous knowledge systems, science knowledge systems, sacred texts, all of these different ways of knowing our relationship with the earth is what SAFC is interested in exploring. And we've been doing this through three main areas: energy and climate justice, food and climate justice, and animal justice, to encompass these wide-ranging issues from how we make sure we have enough resources to live our daily lives, to develop ourselves and our communities, especially those most vulnerable, and to live in harmony with nature. And that's really the ethos, the justice approach that we take at SAFC. And we are well known in South Africa, at least, for challenging the nuclear energy deals here. Energy governance is a big issue for us. The industrial food systems, all these decision-making governance issues that we find are being done in a way that doesn't actually develop our communities in a healthy way that's connected to nature. And sustainable consumption is one of these topics that comes up a lot. And oftentimes we hear it as a sort of northern, Western idea of consuming less, of reducing our impact on the earth. But we know also that in Africa, as we'll be hearing from our panelists, many people actually don't have access to their resources to be sustainable. So sustainable consumption takes a slightly different meaning when we look at it from the African lens and the African context. And I think that's what this webinar is hoping to achieve, is to really listen to experts from our region on what is this issue of sustainable consumption? What does development for Africa look like? And what does it mean to bring a faith lens to sustainable development? These are the questions and the issues that we're going to be unpacking today together. We know as SAFSI that there's tremendous amount of knowledge and expertise in our region. And we don't have to look to the North. We need to be in dialogue with the North, absolutely. We need to learn from each other, but actually an African-centric approach is what we need to generate, to educate ourselves about, to learn. And that's what I'm really looking forward to today, is learning from our panelists, who will be talking from their unique perspectives on this issue. And I know many of you also in the room, you're coming with the lived reality and your own knowledge system. So we hope this is going to be a vibrant exchange. Please do put your names in the comment section. And if you have questions, please put them there too. And my team will try and balance that to make sure we have a bit of a dialogue. At this stage, yes, I think better for everyone to comment in the section there. And we'll see how we can get through our very packed guests, panel guests, and hopefully we'll have chance also for other questions and comments. So this is Gabriel, is really the director of this event. He is an incredible leader in our region, and he always convenes these fascinating dialogues. So without any further ado, I want to move over to who will be speaking today. And you'll see from the schedule that we have, and maybe Judy, you could put that back up on the screen so everyone can see the agenda for today. Very shortly, we're running a little bit late. I'm sorry for going a little over time. We will be listening to Dr. Hassan Omar Kiyua, and I must also apologize if I mispronounce any of the names. Dr. Hassan is the chairperson of the Muslim Professional League of Africa, and he will be our first speaker today. He's got a PhD in religious studies, degrees in law from University of Nairobi, as well as a higher diploma from Islamic banking. He's an extremely knowledgeable person on the issue, and we're really looking forward to his presentation shortly. Then we're so pleased to have Adriana Zakaras Farah, who works at UNEP. She is the head and global coordinator of UNEP's Global Opportunities for Sustainable Development Goals. Who better than to take us through this issue of sustainable development? And as you'll see from the agenda, Adriana will also be presenting to us. Her particular subject matter is the importance of sustainable lifestyles for humanity and nature. And Dr. Hassan will be looking at the spiritual connection as well. But you'll see a common thread going through all of this, which is really about this knitting a more healthy relationship with nature. Then after that, I'm so pleased we've got Asmara Alibahi, who's the Faith and Systems Coordinator also at UNEP. And she spearheads the implementation of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration within the Faith Network. So who better than to hear from during this session today, looking at the importance of sustainable lifestyles for humanity and nature. Then after that, we've got Nelly Wanjiku, also from Kenya. We've got a fantastic Kenyan representation today. Nelly is from the Center for Sustainable Development. It's a community-based organization focusing on environmental protection. And Nelly's also got extensive experience. I'm sorry, I'm not reading everyone's qualifications out because we'll be here for a long time. So I'm going to just skip the qualifications, but just to say that Nelly is going to be joining us. Sorry, I think I read the wrong subject matter for Asmara. Sorry, it's UNEP's Faith for the Earth Coalition on Sustainable Lifestyles from a faith perspective. I hope you're keeping up with me because I'm actually jumping between bios and the agenda. So Nelly is joining a panel also with Annie Banda and Taibu Sipo Sake Mdunguni. So Nelly is coming from Kenya. So we're moving off Kenya, going to Malawi with Annie, and then Taibu is speaking from South Africa. And that panel is looking at when we turn a blind eye to sustainable consumption. What are communities experiencing? So this is testimonies from the front line of communities. And I'll just quickly tell you about Nelly's co-panelists. We've got Annie Stefan Banda. She's from Malawi, as I said. She's a Baha'i. She also is a dedicated part of our Faith Leader Network at SAFC, and I'm sure we're going to be absolutely thrilled to hear from her. And then also on the panel, we've got Taibu Sipusake, and he's the chair of the UKZN, that's KwaZulu-Natal. It's one of the regions here in South Africa, Climate Justice Network. And he's a youth entrepreneur and leader. So we're really excited to have you with us as well. And then after that exciting panel, we move on to our next panel, which is led by Bishop Dr. Emily Onyango. She's from the All Africa Conference of Churches. She's a Christian, and we're absolutely thrilled to have you with us, Dr. Emily. What an exciting panel this is. We've also got Malik Arafat on that panel, John Induritu, Busisiwe Mkad. Oh, Busisi, you're going to kill me for mangling your surname. Mkakwela. And also Gabriel, my colleague, he'll be moderating. And let me just quickly give you the rest of the panel's bios. So Bishop Emily, she's from the All Africa Conference of Churches, as I said. She's also from the African Faith Actors Network for Climate Justice. And she's the Assistant Bishop of the Anglican Church of Kenya and a senior lecturer at St. Paul's University School of Theology. She's also the executive director of CLIATRA. It's an initiative by 6 Anglican women bishops in Africa for fostering transformation. Again, what an esteemed panel. Malik Arafat is from the Africa and Diaspora Muslims Assembly. Malik is originally from Soweto. He's a veteran Azania Muslim leader, activist, and author and media entrepreneur. I can see this panel is looking to be a hugely transformative discussion, and we're so thrilled to have such an incredible list of leaders here. Busisiwe is an agroecology farmer, a faith leader, a seed sovereignty activist since 2015. She's an incredible Indigenous faith leader who we are so honored to partner with on delivering a series of workshops here in South Africa as well. And I think I might have left you out, John Induritu. My apologies. He's a professor in engineering and civil engineering and environmental engineering at the University of Witwatersrand, specializing in hydrology and water resources. He's also a Brahma Kumari. And when you talk to John about the consciousness between the human and plant community, you will see what I was talking about when I said about the community of life. He will really bring that to life for us. And so that ends my whistle-stop tour through our amazing panelists. I have to tell you that we probably need a few days really to do justice of the knowledge and contributions that everyone's going to be making today. But as we are running late, I'm going to just hand back over to Gabriel to take us on to the next speaker and just welcome you all again. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what we as Africans can do for sustainable consumption for our continent and for people of faith. Thank you so much, Gabriel.
Thank you very much, Francesca. Thank you for introducing all our guests today and our guest speakers and everyone who is in the room today. I'm happy for us to move on, and I would like to call on to speak Dr. Sheikh Hassan Kinyua Omari, who is currently actually in India. Thank you so much, Doc, for waiting up for us. And he has a flight to catch, and I would like him to go right away. So over to you, Dr. Hassan.
Thank you so much, dear honorable members. I believe you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you. Please proceed, Doc. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. God bless you all. I'm sharing my screen. I want to know if you can see the screen.
Yes, you can see the screen. If you can put it into the presenter mode as well, maybe for people to be able to see clearly.
Thank you. Thank you. Let me see. Yeah. I will seek your guidance to know how to put it in a presenter mode. Where do I click?
Okay, if you go to the bottom,
yes,
where right there on the bottom right hand corner, the last one which looks like a glass, if you can click there.
Yes, that one.
Yes, that should get us into yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and God bless you all. And also, thank you for your understanding and consideration. I wish to thank everyone who have attended this, especially my team from Muslim Professionals League Africa, and also my leader from Africa Faith Actors Network on Climate Justice. And I've been out of my country for now almost 1 month, traveling to several countries, giving lectures on several matters, and I'll be here for another month in Middle East. My topic is sustainable consumption and spirituality. And this one actually, I'm trying to look at sustainable consumption, which refers to the use of and look at this, it's a use of goods and services that meet basic needs and improve quality of people while minimizing the use of natural resources, toxic materials, and emissions of waste and pollutants over the life cycle. So it means that we have to consume because we are in this world. But at the end of the day, we have to minimize deploration. We are supposed to minimize how we use our resources. And this concept aligns with the principles of various spiritual traditions that emphasize stewardship of the earth, ethical living, and well-being of all life forms. And in our presentation, we'll explore spirituality, but we'll be looking at samples of Islam, Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, and Jainism, and other religions. When you look at definition and the goal of this, we realize that sustainable consumption involves using products and services in a way that it looks at the environmental impact and support human well-being. And it aims to decouple economic growth from environmental degradation, ensuring that development is sustainable and resources are used efficiently. And the key goals here will be looking at how to reduce waste, how to enhance resource efficiency, and how to promote the use of renewable resources. Some of the key strategies which we look here is for sustainable consumption, including adopting circular economy practices, reducing energy and water consumption, supporting fair trade and ethical products, and also encouraging mindful consumption. And these strategies actually help to reduce the ecological footprint and promote a more sustainable and equitable distribution of resources. How? By making conscious choices, individuals can contribute to a larger movement towards global sustainability. Let us look at some spiritual principles. Many spiritual traditions emphasize the interconnectedness of all life and the importance of living in harmony with nature. According to religions, actually, we exist with whatever we are living with, whatever we are. And this is why we have some concepts like stewardship, reverence for life, and the sacredness of the earth, which are central to these teachings. We look at this in the Islam, we have the principle of Khilafah, which call for wise, mindful use of land as trustees for the future generations. In the Christianity, we see the principle of stewardship, which calls for responsible management of earth resources. In Hinduism and Jainism, together, we have the concept of Dharma, which includes duties toward nature. So in Christianity, the concept of stewardship looks at caring for God's creation, with many communities promoting sustainable living through community gardens, recycling programs, and environmental advocacy, which we find in the book of Psalms, chapter 24, verse 1. The earth is the Lord's and everything in it. And we have the same concept in Islam where we say, Lillahi ma fis samawati wa ma fil ard. To Allah belongs everything which is on earth and anywhere we see. Islam advocates sustainable consumption through principles like moderation, wasatiyah. And we are told in the Holy Quran, Inna Allah la yuhibbul musrifin. Allah does not like people who are transgressors. And in Islam, we are taught to conserve water, promote environmental responsibility, and we have the concept of mizan, because we are told in the Holy Quran that Allah has caused for everything mizan, balancing of each and everything we do in this world. Going to Buddhism, we realize that they promote mindful consumption and reducing suffering for all beings through practices like vegetarianism. I never thought in my life that I can stay anywhere a month without eating meat, but I can assure you, my friends, where I am, I've not even had meat for the whole month. And I'm happy because we are only eating vegetables. The principle of right livelihood encourages environmentally harmonious work, while teachings on impermanence and interdependence advocate for simple living and wise resource use. Buddhist communities often participate in environmental activism and conservation projects. Actually, since I came here, we have planted more than 100,000 trees. We have visited more than 3 lakes and clean a river with them, and they are so happy. Hinduism concept of dharma includes duty toward nature with practices such as vegetarianism, which I'm highly practicing and I'm planning to practice maybe for my entire life. They do nature worship. Of course, that one I cannot do because of my religion. And the eco-conscious rituals, that one I'll work with them. They also have the principle of himsa, which is non-violence towards all being, fostering environmental respect and care. Sacred texts like Bhagavad Gita advocate for nature preservation. Environmental consciousness is integrated into festivals like the Diwali. Jainism principle of himsa leads to minimizing environmental harm through rigorous waste management, promoting renewable resources and community-based environmental initiatives. The philosophy of non-possessiveness encourages a minimalist lifestyle, reducing consumption and waste. Mindful consumption involve making deliberate decisions about consumption patterns with a heightened awareness of their ecological and social consequences. And this approach encourages individuals to consider the full life cycle of products and services from sourcing material to disposal. And this is actually very important because you realize that some of us have 4 cars. Why don't we have a community car where we all use together? We sometimes buy a lot of what we cannot consume. This is something which we have to look at. Christian perspective emphasizes stewardship as a core principle, teaching believers to care for God's creation responsibly. And this includes practices like reducing waste, conserving natural resources, and supporting the sustainable products and practices. This we can find in the book of Psalms. Actually, the earth is the Lord's and everything in it, as we had said earlier. Islamic perspective. Islam, they promote moderation or satya and condemn wastefulness, as we had said. And the verse of Quran says, and do not waste extravagantly. Indeed, he does not like the wasteful. This is Quran chapter 6, verse 141. And we see this in the life of the Prophet, who used to say that you eat and you divide the food 3 times. A third for food, a third for water, and a third for air. So meaning that if a human being, you can have only 1 chapati and a cup of juice and some vegetables and then some beans, then you are good to go. Jainism advocate for himsa. This one we have talked about it. You will allow me to move forward. Now, what are the practical ways of doing this? Reduce and recycle. We adopt this because it will help minimize waste and reduce the demand for new resources. Then we also look at support sustainable products, where we choose products that are sustainably sourced, ethically produced, and environmentally friendly, which support sustainable consumption. And this can include buying organic food, using eco-friendly cleaning products, and supporting companies with strong environmental policies. On spiritual matters, practices, we incorporate spiritual practices such as meditation, prayer, and reflection, which can enhance awareness and commitment to sustainable living. Community engagement. Communities can promote sustainable consumption by organizing local initiatives such as farmers markets, clothing shops, and education workshops on sustainability. And this is something which I highly thank AACC, or Africa Council of Churches, and also AFAN-CJ, Peace League Africa, and Muslim Brothers League Africa, because they have collaborated and they are doing this a lot. What are the global efforts, international frameworks, and agreements such as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal? We look at it and implement it in all our countries. What are some of the challenges? Some of the challenges to sustainable consumption include the consumer economic structures and lack of awareness. Most people lack awareness. Overcoming these challenges require addressing systemic issues, changing cultural norms, and providing education and resources to support sustainable sources. What are the solutions? Solutions involve policy changes, corporate responsibility, and grassroots movement, encouraging sustainable business practices, implementing supportive policies, and raising public awareness, which are key to strategy for promoting sustainable consumption. Religious organizations can play a vital role in educating their communities and advocating for sustainability. And this one, I can tell you the truth, AFAN-CJ have even put someone who does our media work every day. And since I joined All Africa Network on Climate Justice, every day, I always give one lecture, even if it's brief, on environmental preservation, every day. So I've done more than a short 100 videos, which even today I did one, yesterday I did, and every I do. If anyone wants them, then you can follow me on Twitter, on my Twitter, on my Facebook, and all my other social handles, which I'll paste them. And now we look at the collaboration with Muslim Brothers League Africa, with AFAN-CJ. AFAN-CJ, with collaboration with Muslim Brothers League Africa, has had global campaigns on sustainable consumption, calling upon all to practice positive consumer habits on economic structures, and they raise awareness, empower people how to overcome environmental challenges while addressing systemic issues. You can see actually in that photo there, this is a team of some of Muslim Brothers League Africa who are pilots. There are times they take me from one county of Kenya to another with their own plane, where we go and talk to their other partners and also assist us in doing this work. And we thank God for that. In conclusion, let us follow the teachings of Allah as per verse 31 of Surah Al-A'raf, all children of Adam. Now, this doesn't mean Muslims, Christians, Hindus, everyone. Wear your beautiful apparel at every time and place of prayer. Eat and drink, but waste not by excess, for God loves not the wasters. Prophet Muhammad taught that one person's food is enough for two people's food is enough for all, and for 4 people is enough for 8. Let us all share our providence with others, and we make this world a better place. Thank you so much, all of us, for attending and also support. And if you have any questions, please, you can direct them to us, as you can see here. And you can also visit our website at www.drhassankinyua.com. And also you can email us, as you have seen. May God bless all of you. Maybe there are questions. If there are no questions, maybe there's also a panel discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hassan. This is wonderful. Thank you so much for bringing us to the issues that we have to deal with on a day-to-day basis, and also bringing us closer that there is no gap between ourselves and our spirituality. We should live what we believe in. Thank you so much for that. And for highlighting the element of stewardship, the element of Khilafah, the element of balance. Thank you very much. And from the attendees, if we can have anybody with a question, may you please raise your hand, and we can have at least 3 questions so that Dr. Omari can respond to that. Any questions or comments on Dr. Omari's presentation? Maybe whilst we have people thinking, I just have one quick one, Doc, which relates to the element of consumption. you talked about maybe the practical actions that people should take. Maybe from a general perspective, what else can we do? Maybe you've said you move from one county to another teaching people. What else can we encourage our people to do on a daily basis, at an individual basis? Maybe one example that you can actually give. You have mentioned
Thank you.
one on food, but maybe we can add others.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You have asked for one. Allow me to give you three. The first practical way of doing it, I've always told Muslims, I've visited more than 1,000 mosques in this world. And you know, Muslims, every day we pray, we must take ablution. And I can assure you, more than 95 mosques waste that water. I don't know, that water doesn't have soap. That water is very good for farming. So I've advised Muslims globally to start reusing that water, to start diverting that water to the farms. And I'm telling you, there are many mosques currently, especially in Kenya and Tanzania and Uganda, which now have very big farms out of the water which they have been wasting. Remember, imagine some of them have wasted the water for more than 50 years. And it's something which maybe it's just a matter of looking at it. So that is one thing I've advised Muslims globally. The second thing I've advised people is the issue of slaughtering of animals. When we are slaughtering animals, let us do it in a very ethical manner. And we always separate. And the last one is separating our waste. You know, many people put every waste in one place. I'm advising people nowadays to put waste into three. If you can't manage 4 or 5 to 3, you use the bio, actually the food waste and others in one basket. Now this one you can give it to animals, you can give it to the fish and other animals, or you can even use it as manure. And then there is the one which actually you can go and decompose somewhere. And this is what I'm telling people. And the last one is the issue of agriculture. Let us not waste any seed. I can tell you, for more than 20 years, I have not wasted any seed wherever I eat, even if it's in 5-star hotel. If I eat avocado, I take that seed. If I eat oranges, I carry the seeds in my pocket. Sometimes people say I'm crazy, which I agree. And then I go and plant them wherever I am. It doesn't matter which country I'm in. That is one way of giving back to the earth and making sure that we have eaten one orange, but you are sure out of your act, people will eat more than 1,000 or even 1,000 oranges from what you're eating. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doc, for that. I think we had wanted to keep back such important information. Thank you so much for sharing. Any other comments or questions, even from the chat?
Taibu. There's someone by the name Taibu.
Yes, Siposake, please go ahead and ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum to Sheikh Hassan. I wanted to find out over here that are you able to work with organizations, the upcoming organizations? Are you able to like visit countries, maybe like here in South Africa? Can you come to our organization and teach us and tell us more on how to do the work? Because most of the people love to do the work, but there is lack of information on how to do it or who to contact or what to do on a daily basis. So most of the time we try to work on something and then down the line it lacks information and then we give up and all those kind of stuff. So do you like take small programs and work with them and grow them until where they can work with other organizations to share the information so that the information doesn't only stay with you all, it also comes to the small organizations?
Yes, thank you so much for that question. May God bless you. It's a good question. I'm on call. As I've told you, I've visited 35 countries and I'll be visiting more other 30 countries. And most of the countries which invite me actually are the countries in the Middle East and other countries. And I'll be happy to work with anyone globally. I'm an author of 34 books, and some of the books I have is this one, Quran and Hadith. This is one of the books which is used in almost all universities globally. I have another one on Islamic law. This is a very important book. And I have another one on issues in Islam. So we are welcoming each and every person to work together. And you know, in Africa Faith Actors Network on Climate Justice, we are calling upon all leaders from entire Africa to join us. And when you join us, we have forum where we discuss. And anytime you invite me, I will come. And even if you have a Zoom, I'll come. As you can see, I'm in a very important forum here. I have to travel, but because of this, you know, environment is key. I must be here. So you can look at our information. You can even go to Google and get my name, and then we agree on how we can work together. So, and I see my bosses are also here. I've seen Dr. Tinashe is also here, and others. We can work together. And also this organization which have invited us here, I believe we'll have a collaboration because the world belongs to all of us. And we don't care about religion, no. I'm an interfaith person, and I believe we can work all over the religions.
Thank you very much, Dr.
In fact, this is my book on pieces of me, my journey in interfaith dialogue. This book to realize how we work with people from all over the world in all religions.
Thank you so much. For some of the questions, please, you can place them in the chat, and then we can redirect them to Dr. Omari, or we can also have that discussion at the end of the session. Now, I would like to invite to speak to us Adriana from the United Nations, from UNEP. So, Adriana, over to you.
Thank you so much. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
So first of all, I want to thank so much to the Southern African Faith Communities Environment Institute, to you, Gabriel and Francesca, for the invitation. This is my first time with you. I'm here to share with you what we're doing, but also to learn what about you and your work. And Hassan Omani, I have enjoyed very much your presentation. You have already touched about many, many issues I want to also talk about. So that's the first thing I want to say. I am Adriana Zacarias. I'm working in UN Environment Program. I'm based here in Nairobi for the last 3 years. And I've been in UNEP for a long time, don't need to say, but it's over 2 decades. So I'm very much passionate about the issue about sustainable consumption and production lifestyles. So happy to share with you and amplify, I will say, the messages that already Hassan has started to talk about. So I think Francesca said it in the introduction. We are today, and Gabriel, you also mentioned, more and more we are seeing issues of economic crisis. We see that poverty and inequalities continue to grow, and hand in hand to that is the environmental crisis. So those are global issues that we are facing, and we need to recognize that there is a connection, and to address this, we need to have integrated policies and solutions. Yes, government needs to act, private sector, society, but the part of faith, religion, and individuals is very important, because at the end of the day, our world is made by humans, and the humanity has to change. And I like Hassan, as you say, the world belongs to all, and we all need to come together. So in our work, I always say that the missing part has been always the faith, the religion, the spirituality. How can that change come within? And yes, of course, we need enabling conditions, and I will talk about it. So in my presentation, I will talk about 3 things. First, I just want to give some information on this triple planetary crisis, or the environmental challenges that we are facing and the trends. And why then, the second point, why this is really calling for an urgent change that requires a systemic change and social and economic transformation, and then the importance of sustainable lifestyles and sustainable consumption and production. If we look back 50 years ago, we see that since the 70s to now, in the last 5 decades, our global population had doubled. The destruction of our natural resources has tripled. And yes, we can say, well, yeah, but the economy has grown and the GDP has grown 4 times bigger. However, we know that that economic growth has not been equally distributed. Today, we see that 1% of the population owns 2 times more than the rest of the world population. So 1% owns 2 times more than 99% of the global population. And that's a big concern. So in that economic growth, we haven't really created a better social well-being and economic transformation. And I always say this is very much reflected in many systems, like the food system. We're in a world where almost 100 million people are starving, while 1 out of 8 people are obese. So when some people are dying, the others are over-consuming. And that we can see it in the water, in forest, in the natural resources. This distribution is not equal. And at the same time, sadly, yes, we are, and I'm glad you are mentioning that the religion is calling to avoid a wasteful society. But we are not doing that, because how comes that when some people are starving, we know that 20% of the food that we are producing ends up in the bin. So we are doing something wrong. At the same time, we are in a wasteful society. I wish the photo that you see here, I wish I would say, you know, guys, don't worry, it's a Photoshop, but this is a real photo. Our rivers have become rivers of waste. And we know that 80% of all the plastics and the textiles that we are producing end up in a landfill, most of them after 6 months of use. And given the market structure and the marketing, the products we are designing, most of them are disposable, and we are just in a society that is buying and throwing away. So we are not looking after the God's creation. And just to continue on this, we know that 1 truck of waste ends up in the ocean every minute. So that's scary. And we need to take action there. And I don't want to depress you, but those are real science-based numbers that we have. We also know, and as I mentioned today in the first slide, the last decades, the extraction of resources have tripled. And we know that that extraction is responsible of 90% of the biodiversity loss, 90% of our forests that are gone, of the oceans that are depletion, of all of our beautiful ecosystems that had been damaged. So not surprised that these trends and this economic system has brought us to what we call the triple planetary crisis of climate change, biodiversity loss, and increasing levels of pollution. And when we really look down and analyze why is this happening, we see because that the root case is this system, linear economic model of extraction, production, use, and waste. That is actually based on our unsustainable patterns of consumption and production. Therefore, we need to move from a linear economy to a circular economy where there is no waste, where the products are designed in a way that can be reduced, that can be refilled, that don't need to be disposable. And that requires also changes also on our personal behavior, the choices we're making, the decisions that we make. So as I mentioned, so that leads us to the need for a systemic change to move to circular economy and to change our lifestyles. In UNEP, we are talking about the need to decouple, delink the economic growth with the extraction of resources. Normally, we know that and the economic model that we have followed is you need to extract resources to grow and to have economic growth. You need to use more resources and you're producing more waste. But no, we know that it is possible to still have economic growth while we are reducing the extraction of resources, when we are reducing the waste, and yet we can be able to increase well-being. And that's what we call decoupling. How can we have economic growth, but then reducing the pollution. How can it be? With more efficient production systems, when we are doing products that are more durable, that can be repaired, that are non-disposable. And we also know that there are 5 key sectors that if we focus, we can reduce we can make a big change in the environment. And those are building and construction, mobility, plastics, textiles, and food. If we focus in changes in these sectors, we can make a big impact. Can you still see my screen? Because I see something in yours.
Yes, we can still see your screen.
Okay. We have launched in March a new report by our International Resource Panel. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but what is beautiful here is that it's talking about how to create this systemic change and how really what we need to do is to have more sustainable management of our natural resources. Look at how to provide and how are the systems that are providing our basic needs like transport, housing, food, education, etc. How can we make them more sustainable? But what I want to emphasize to you is that the main important is the human well-being, and is the happiness and the well-being and the health of society. So, and that's what we are working. How to do it? And why now? What is our role as citizens, as you, as faith-based organizations? First of all, people, when they hear about climate change, they say, oh yeah, but I'm not polluting, you know, is it the industry or is the government? But we know by studies that 75% of the CO2 emissions are coming from households. And that's on the way we are moving, the transport we are using, the houses, the food we are eating. And that will require changes, as Hassan already was saying, and the policy making, innovation and technology, but also the behavioral change. Let me give you some examples how we can contribute. If we are concerned about climate change, we know that if we start creating behavioral change towards more energy efficiency, more efficient transport, we can contribute to reduce 5% of the CO2 emissions just by behavioral change. Biodiversity, and I'm glad you were talking about food and that you've been in some religions, how they are based on vegetarian diets, or that you've been Hassan without meat the last month. That's very important. Changing food habits and trying to reduce animal protein could actually help to reduce 30% of the biodiversity lost and save a lot of overexploitation of our land. And then, of course, changing our behavioral choices, our consumption choices can also help to reduce pollution. Now, good news to all of you. March this year, we have the UN Environment Assembly here in Nairobi. It's the week that all the ministers of environment gather here, and they are revising the global agenda and putting on the table key priorities and resolutions. With the leadership of India, we have adopted now, and we have a new resolution on sustainable lifestyles. And here, all governments have agreed to promote sustainable lifestyles, to join forces and provide more science-based enabling conditions to promote public and private collaboration, education at all levels, and increase awareness raising and education. For that, we are also committed to share and facilitate knowledge, best practices, research, literature. And in this, we will be working in supporting governments in making policy changes, sharing best practices. And the last part I want to emphasize is we are also called to create regional dialogues to look at different aspects of sustainable lifestyles, different values, approaches, And I think the faith and the religious aspect, the beliefs are also a very important approach that we need to put on the table and will be an important and are an important element of this transformation that we are doing. So just having this dialogue is already contributing to the implementation of this resolution. Now, I have now given the context on why this is important. Now you might be asking, oh, what is sustainable lifestyles and how is this different to consumption, sustainable consumption that Hassan and Francesca Gabriel have talked about? Consumption is very important aspect, component on sustainable lifestyle, but with sustainable lifestyles, we are looking this in a bigger landscape or overview on how our consumption and individual decisions are actually framed into a more broader system. And I will expand a little more, but it's a close relationship, so don't think it's too different. Sustainable lifestyles, we understand, is the ways of living, the social behavior and choices that we are making that minimize the environmental degradation, like the use of natural resources, the CO2 emissions, the waste and pollution, while at the same time they are supporting equitable social economic development and better quality of life. And this is very important, and I like, Francesca, what you were saying. How does it look really different in Africa, where we still need to satisfy basic needs, where we have a big level of poverty? And I remember one of my first mission or when I was here in Africa, when I started to work about sustainable consumption, I came here to Kenya to a regional conference on sustainable consumption. And this was 20 years ago. And really the first question was to say, how can we talk about sustainable consumption or lifestyles when we are still need to combat poverty, reduce inequalities? And what we are saying, it is very important because we cannot reproduce the same consumption patterns that the Western have, because we know they are not sustainable, they are not leading neither to a better or increased happiness or to better care for the earth. So the opportunity here is to leapfrog, to keep the traditional knowledge that you have here and to find different ways of satisfying human needs using less resources, but also keeping the knowledge, the traditional knowledge and practices that the continent has, and in creating different infrastructure that will help yet to reduce poverty, to increase well-being, but protecting our environment. So it's an opportunity and leapfrogging, that's what I want to say. Now, we always say people don't, and I guess you all agree, I mean, people don't pollute because they want to pollute and kill the environment. As Hassan was already saying, it's for ignorance, it's lack of information. And we always say that we as humans and consumers, citizens, we live in a paradox. And I like this picture because you see here a girl that is saying, well, in her thoughts, he is aspiring. He says, I would like to end poverty. I want to stop violence, racism. I want to get rid of pollution and that people are equal. And that's our aspirations, right? But at the same time, we're in a society that are influenced by marketing and peers and the community and what we see in social media. And we say, okay, I want to have nice clothes. I want to have a car. I want to have what we see in the movies, you know, and the latest phone and watch TikToks. So we have this contradiction that often, if I may, now that we are talking here about faith, is taking us out of our beliefs of who we are. And we are becoming, we are in a society that is starting to value people of what they have and not what they are. And I think, as you were mentioning, in sustainable consumption of lifestyles, we need to move to a more mindful consumption, simplicity. And I will also say we need to move in a society that value people and that we value others for what they are and not what they have. And that's really a key message that I want to share. Now, what shapes sustainable lifestyles and also consumption? we need to consume to satisfy our basic needs. We need to consume for our aspirations like education, traveling, meeting friends. And we also consume because we are influenced by different things. I want you to focus now in this graphic that you see on the screen. This is very important because consumption and lifestyles is not simple. First of all, we need to consume, as I say, for basic needs, but our consumption and our lifestyles will depend on our income, our gender. Women and men, we consume differently. As a child, as a single person, as a married person, you will also consume different or have different needs. Maybe as a young person, you can cycle a lot. Elderly, maybe your health will not allow you so much, etc. When you have kids, you need different consumption patterns, right? So that consumption is not static, it's not equal. In our life, it's starting to change. That's the first thing. Second, consumption is also influenced by our culture, our beliefs, religion, faith. That's very important. And as I mentioned, the media, the politics, the economic, the prices. How many of you like to consume sustainable products, organic food, but you go to the market and they are 3 times more expensive and you cannot afford? So affordability, market signals are important though. How many of you would like to recycle, as Hassan was saying, or cycle in the bicycle, but there's no infrastructure for recycling, sorting your waste, for a public, for the bicycle lanes or safe walking. So realize, but for example, let me give you an example. I was living in Panama that is very, very humid. And in the moment that you are cycling, after 2 minutes in the bicycle, you will be completely sweaty. So I couldn't go to the office all sweaty, except that we had a shower, and we as employees, we were able to then cycle there, have a shower, and start the work. So that's, again, infrastructure is important. The weather will shape the things you can do or not. So here, what I just want you to keep in mind is that it's complex. The lifestyles, our consumption patterns are shaped by different aspects. And we need to work in all of them to have policies that will really make that shift. And that's when we say we need to work on attitudes, that is the beliefs, the education, and here what you see in the attitude is where you play a key role in creating awareness raising, in creating education, in creating the change and the willingness for people to change. Whereas governments will need to work more on regulation and policies in creating the right market signals, and then private sector government in providing the enabling infrastructure to create that change. And just to say, sometimes we tend to put the responsibility only in the consumer and individual, and you need to do 100 things. But yeah, that will come, but it also has to be collective one. And that's really nice. For example, the role that churches, the religion, the communities can create in doing this collective change, and creating ownership. Like, okay, it's good to recycle, it's good to plant trees, and doing in community and creating identity is also very important to generate that change. So I stop there. Let me now do an invitation. First of all, I want to say we are very active on promoting sustainable lifestyles. We have the Sustainable Lifestyle Action Academy with the different modules that you see here. And Hassan was talking about food. I am happy to say we also have a campaign on sustainable Ramadan. So we have been working in West Asia. During the Ramadan, we know that there's a lot of food waste. So we did a campaign to reduce food waste during the Ramadan. And now we're working with the hotel industry that are putting in place some nudges and practices to do that. We have online modules on sustainable lifestyles, a social media challenge, anatomy of action on what you can do. And I want to invite you to our online training on My Sustainable Living Challenge. This is a 6 weeks online training moderated with experts and live chat. It's not a safe place. You will be in a community. And during these 6 weeks, you will learn how to change your lifestyles in different domains, in what you eat, how you live, how you move, what you buy, and how you get fun. So it's very nice. It's a very interactive academy or learning course where you will learn, but you will also ask to paste photos and show the change that you are doing in your everyday life. And you will have some questions. If you answer them, you have a virtual tree that will be growing. And if you are sent bad, your tree will die. So we are also planting virtual trees in this challenge. You have 1 week more to get to enroll in this. We're offering 2,000 scholarship, and for this edition, maybe this will be interesting for you. We are calling for communities to create a team of 7 to 10 people, so that they will competing with the other and see who does better, how many trees each one is planting. So we encourage you all to please join the challenge. The real training starts in September. And I will ask, here you can see the QR code, and I will ask my colleague Elena or Sihan to share the link for Helen, if you can put the link for the challenge. And with this, Gabriel, I hand over to you, and thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Adriana, for this very informative presentation, and also for the lessons that you have brought to the fore. I actually calculated that since we started this meeting, we have had 90 truckloads that have been dumped into the sea because we've been here for 90 minutes. This is quite scary, and I think each and every one of us would need to take responsibility and do something to reduce the waste that we are dumping into the ocean. Thank you very much for that. And we so much look forward to working with the UN on this challenge. And I do believe that from our different groups right across the continent, we will definitely have groups that are going to be participating in this. And maybe from the office, Francesca will also need to join that challenge. Thank you so much. Maybe in the interest of time, I would like to invite Azmaira to come in and also do her presentation. Then we can have questions and responses coming in together, if that would be okay with you, Adriana. Thank you so much. And now I would like to invite Azmaira to come in and give us a presentation, also coming from the United Nations and presenting on the topic United Nations Environment Program's Faith for Earth Coalition on Sustainable Lifestyles from a Faith Perspective. Thank you very much, and over to you, Azmaira.
Thanks, Gabriel, and good morning, everybody from Nairobi in Kenya. I'm very happy to see that there's such a strong Kenyan delegation present at this SAFK webinar and hopefully the SAFK network. So we look forward to engaging with them, given that UNEP's global headquarters is located in Nairobi. It's a pleasure to join you in this conversation on people of faith, working with the Earth community to restore and repair the Earth. I'm the Faith in Ecosystems Coordinator at UNEP's Faith for Earth Coalition, which goes to say that we work exclusively with faith actors, from young faith leaders under the mechanism of the Faith for Earth Youth Council, to faith-based organizations within the Interfaith Working Group structure. And just to say, there's 3 interfaith working groups, one on climate change, that's spearheading actions for COP29. And we're pleased to announce that there will be a faith pavilion at COP29, another interfaith working group on pollution and waste, and a third one on nature and biodiversity loss, where we partner with the Faiths for Biodiversity group that Francesca, I believe, has been connected with in the past. And why do we engage with faith actors? It's because of this very topic. Sustainable lifestyles identify how we live. So do our respective religious and spiritual traditions that prescribe a set of behaviors, influences, our choices and habits. It's a reflection of who we are, and that shapes the society that we live in. As Dr. Hassan said, he's living in a predominantly Hindu community or setting, and he hasn't had any meat or animal products in his diet for some time now. And we can see how our religious and spiritual traditions do shape the society that we live in. Social norms serve as a strong underpinning for how people behave in their everyday lives, and our ethics, our values, and our beliefs in what is right and wrong lead us to do or not to do any number of things. Whether that's eating meat, whether that's fasting during a period of time, or dressing in a certain way. To address these root causes, the environmental challenges that Adriana spoke about, induces us to think about positive behavior change. And we put to you that it requires us to recenter our values like compassion, values like commitment, ethics like respect and integrity, to address the multiple crises that we are living in. Again, as Adriana said, how can this change come from within? Faith actors are strategically positioned to accomplish this and are obligated to. Now, at the risk of repeating myself, but I do want to highlight what different traditions say about sustainable living. For example, in the Baha'i tradition, and I'm very glad that we'll see a speaker from this tradition later on in this webinar, it is said to take from the world only to the measure of your needs and forgo that which exceeds them. This is the very notion of sustainable consumption. Baha'u'llah urges his followers to develop a view of the world as a global society where individuals are inspired to take care of the planet's long-term health and commit to a stewardship of Earth. This is the notion of sustainability, of caring for the needs of future generations and justice. In Buddhism, we are introduced to this concept of the middle way, suggesting that any kind of extremes should be avoided, from the unsustainable use of resources and the excesses that we have come to enjoy in our everyday lives. And I'll give you a hint on what that is. It's fashion. In Christianity, God, the Creator, entrusted human beings to be stewards of creation. And the Lord took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and care for it. And I particularly like this verse or this chapter because it helps us to think about sustainable living as an essential element of our everyday lives through the work that we do, and looking at that as an expression of faith. In Hinduism, Hindus are obliged to take care of the earth. There's a notion, Bhutayajna, to express gratitude to nature. And in Islam, as Dr. Hassan said, the Quran does speak on wasteful consumption and encourages Muslims to act according to the example that the Holy Prophet has set. Through using water sparingly, preventing deforestation by proclaiming certain land as Hima, or a protected area. Religions are so concerned with the way that we live our lives that they speak about living good lives for the sake of all living beings, humankind and animals alike. And an obligation like this comes with a set of responsibilities to provide guidance on the paradox that Adriana spoke about in her presentation. And this is where I want to focus my intervention here. So how can faith-based organizations and faith actors generally take these lessons, these values, these ethics, and to practical action? One, it's through good practice. Ask yourselves, as communities working in this space, what are the needs of the community in which you are located? and how can you meet them with the best available knowledge in addressing the issues? I don't think it's enough to say we must do, but how do we do it and how do we do it well? With this obligation comes a responsibility. We had a previous attendee say, but there's a lack of information. But I put to you that there's a lot out there. So it's perhaps not the lack of information, but knowing where to find it and where to start, and also information or guidance that's localized in your particular context that may be missing. But whose responsibility is it to come up with this guidance and set and put forward programs or work plans, working with communities to address environmental issues? It's people living in these local settings. It's looking at programs, courses, trainings, and asking in my very local context, in my community, in my estate, in my village, what does this look like practically? Because when you look at it from a localized lens, you, as the people who are living through the challenges, experiencing them, know how to take advantage of local processes, understand the local culture, and can promote entrepreneurship, innovation, and tools using very general programs, courses, trainings that are already out there. How do we leverage on this good practice again? Look at faiths and how they are organized. Whether there's a faith leader, how that faith leader addresses the community through the sermons, in ensuring that the solution that you implement or the program that you set, the activity that you organize is sustainable. That throughout the years, and think long term, 2 and 3 years, how can I do or how can I start addressing this issue and build from the starting point, so that there's a reasonable expectation you're setting on the people that you're engaging with. We're very pleased to announce that in the next couple of weeks, their work on Green Faith Festivals will be the forefront of our attention at the Faith for Earth Coalition, where we are looking at how to mobilize global faith celebrations like Ramadan, Eid, Diwali, Holi, Christmas, Easter, looking specifically at how grassroots actors are addressing these issues in localized context, and providing this peer-to-peer learning using the Faith for Earth Coalition as a platform. So I invite you all to have a look at that. I'm going to share a couple of links in the chat as well as my email address. So please do reach out to us if you have projects to share, resources to share. The second major thing that faith actors can do is leverage the networks. There is no need to reinvent the wheel, but also look at how young leaders can work with you to support your mission in a collaborative way. Taking such a multi-stakeholder approach allows you to leverage on the wisdom and the trust of the faith leader, the energy and the need to have something done by the young people, to address very critical, very localized challenges within the community. It's a treasure trove of experience, of expertise, to also look within the community for professionals that are working in the banking industry, in academia, and introduce to them this obligation that their faith imposes on them, and task them with this important question: how can we mobilize financing for our activities? How can we leverage on academic networks, formal and informal, to ensure that climate literacy and environmental literacy is at the forefront of the community's attention. This goes to say institutional mechanisms. What are you already doing to teach the community, the faith community, and how can we introduce environmental concepts there? And how can we leverage houses of worship and the people that it's able to reach through sermons, to communicate essential information and mobilize youth action and to ensure that the processes that we are looking at within these institutions, for example, waste management, is something that you're taking the lead on and supporting the community with. The third thing that faith actors can do is collaborate. I believe in the concept note shared for this webinar. It stated there that 85% of South Africans are religious or spiritual. So what interfaith networks can you engage with? If I take a look at my own hometown and the number of houses of worship within the city, it's close to 15 to 20. So if each of them led the way on sustainable waste management practices and allowed the community to have a look at the process, worked with them, then we are looking at a multiplier effect within a given city, targeting people who may not already have access to proper waste management systems to start addressing the issue. Centers in low-income areas that have no choice but to dump waste in rivers on the roadside would then have an example close to them with a voice that's trusted by them, showing them the way on how to solve the issue. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, but let's partner with civil society organizations and other stakeholder groups to see how best we can leverage their expertise and bring in the infrastructure and the networks that faiths have and this voice of trust and reason. And the fourth point that I would like to make, which is a space that we engage in, is engaging in civic spaces locally and bringing those local solutions to the global level. And at UNEP, we do that through the United Nations Environment Assembly stakeholder mechanism. At the moment, there's 85 accredited faith-based organizations across the civil society groups. There's 9 of them. A majority of them are within the NGO space, but we have some in youth, we have some in the women major group, and they bring these experiences looking at environmental issues through the lens of the youth, environmental issues, and the unique challenges it poses to women, to a common platform that we facilitate at the coalition. And I'll end with our commitment, and that is to working with faith actors globally, locally, providing a platform for peer-to-peer exchange through these interfaith thematic working groups, to take these good practices at the local level and demonstrate how we can move the global community to learn from them and be inspired by them. We would love to hear from you about your work, so do reach out to us and tag us on social media. And with that, in the chat, I'm going to put a couple of links and invite any questions you may have. Over to you, Gabriel. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Azmira, and thank you for that focus on the faith institutions. And I do believe that this will go a long way in changing the lifestyles that we are living, and we would also want to be part of that. Maybe quick questions, if there are any people who would want to ask questions now, maybe just 3 on the presentations from Adriana and Azmira. If you may show by raising your hands if you'd want to speak, or otherwise we can defer the questions to the end of the session. I'll definitely have 2 questions for you at the end. Okay, we have one from Hajat, and Hajat, please go ahead. And also one from Rumbizai. So after Hajat, Rumbizai will come in next, then we'll ask them to answer the questions together.
Good morning from Uganda. This is Hajat Seriala. I'm a member of Fleet Uganda. And thank you so much for the presentations that have been put forward. Most of them speak to the practices that we are already into. I just want to understand how we can now collaborate and ensure that we have common reporting sharing what we do and then learning from each other. That is my question, because we're already into tree planting at mosques. We already have greening Fridays. We already have some good consumption during Ramadan and during Eid. We have communities we host. So I'm just trying to understand how now we can work together to ensure that we get out all the best practices and continue impacting. I thank you so much, Gabriel, and thank you for the presenters. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Ajat. And Rumbidzai, can you go ahead and ask your question?
Okay, thank you so much, Gabriel, and thank you so much, Adriana and Asmaira and Dr. Sand, for those insightful presentations. My question goes to Adriana. Like you've said, you are very, very passionate about sustainable living. So my question is, what motivated you, or how you started your journey? What were the most challenging difficulties, especially in trying to engage different people, different actors, and how you managed to address those challenges along the journey? Just asking, as a young person who is also trying to start this journey of my sustainable living challenge. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I see no other hands, so I would give it to you, Adriana and Asmaira, to respond to those two questions, and then we can proceed.
Thank you so much, Gabriel. And Rumbi, yes, I don't know if I pronounce well your name. Rumbi, I will call you. Thanks so much for this very beautiful question. So what motivated me? I tell you very shortly my story. I was around 19, 20 years old. I was studying in Mexico City. I'm Mexican. And I was hearing about pollution, waste, all these problems. And I was like, oh my God, I want to go to the jungle and protect the animals or the trees. And, you know, and then I understood, okay, I'm a student, I'm a urban citizen. What can I do from my end? And it's when I understood that it is through consumption that we are making daily choices to pollute or not. And I started an environmental group with my friends in the university to talk about consumption and production. At that time, I believe, I tell you, in Mexico, sustainable policies were not, I was doing political science and my professors thought I was crazy. Yeah, why someone doing political science is interested in environment. But to make the story short, that led me then to implementing the whole university a recycling system. Then we did the National Youth Environmental Agenda Alliance for Mexico, and then we expanded to the whole Americas from Canada to Chile. So I think for me, what was nice was to see the power of youth, of young people when we believe, when we want to make a change. How we did, we came together, we convinced even the professors to have then an interdisciplinary environmental team, and more than we have like subjects that were teaching about environmental policy. So that's one thing. What are the challenges? I think one lesson learned that I personally had, but also working then in UNEP, is that yes, we want to do changes as individual, and people, when you talk to them, they understand. They say, oh yeah, it's bad. I don't want to destroy God's creation, so to pollute the ocean or the trees. But sometimes we feel powerless, right? Because, as I say, you don't have the infrastructure. So what I learned, and we even published in one publication, if you increase awareness, but you are not creating the enabling policies, you are going to create frustration. Why? Because now as a citizen, I know that what I'm doing is wrong and I don't want to do it, but yet I don't have the containers to sort my waste. I don't have the facility to do composting. I want to consume grain, but it's 3 times more expensive. So what I learned is what I was saying, this requires a systemic change. And yes, we need changes in policies. We need the market pricing, we need innovation. And that's where all actors need to work in that. And the other challenge, as I mentioned, is the issue of poverty. We cannot make this an agenda of consuming less or the green consumption for the elite. We need to make sure that, yes, some people will need to modify and reduce the consumption of natural resources so that poor people and people in needs need to consume more to meet the basic needs. And we are talking now in UNEP about the first phase and how this has to be also about reducing inequalities and poverty. So thank you, I stop here. And thanks so much for your question. And for Uganda, how to collaborate, I let Asmaira, but what we want is to create a collective practice, a space where you all can share your best practices and inspire others. So we are dreaming internally, we will discuss, but we want to have a portal where you can share videos or document your activities so that you can inspire others and we can amplify what you are doing. Thank you, over.
Thank you. For the first question, I shared in the chat the link to the Faith Action and the UN SDG database. We pick thematic areas that faith actors are engaged in. We look at the trends from the network, and we publish 4 or 5 projects on a quarterly basis. That's an example of this good practice. So what I can ask you to do is have a look at the database, submit your projects there on a regular basis. That would be great, so that the network is aware of what you're working on to encourage partnership and to learn from you. So if you could have a look at that database, that would be great. But on a more interactive level, through the interfaith thematic working groups, we look at very specific issues. For example, in the interfaith working group on pollution, one question that we're asking is, how can faith actors reduce plastic pollution specifically within the different meetings that they organize, the actual events that they hold, like sermons, and what are the challenges in doing so practically? So I shared my email as well in the chat. Please reach out. I will add you to our network so that you are aware of what's happening in terms of any upcoming webinars that you can be part of or learnings that you can contribute to. And so, yeah, that's the best way that you can engage at the moment. Have a look at what the Faith for Earth newsletter invites you to participate in, and we'd love to hear from your experiences.
Thank you very much, Asmaira and Adriana, for responding to those questions. I think coming from the youth, I think they are dedicated to doing as much as they can do. So thank you for giving them the resources to start off and also the ideas to go forward. I would now like to move forward and invite a panel which is made up of mainly the youth to share their experiences which come as a result of our lifestyles that are non-compliant with what nature requires us to do. What happens when we turn a blind eye to sustainable consumption? And first, I would like to invite Nelly Wanjiku from Kenya to just share with us her experience as a citizen of Kenya and a resident of Nairobi, on how and what she felt when the flooding in Kenya happened. Over to you, Nelly. Hi, Nelly, we cannot hear you. If you can adjust your mic.
And now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm delighted to be part of this informative session, and quite a lot to learn and share alongside each other. Before I go to my presentation on the current or the recent floods that we had in Kenya, I would like to maybe share a small video on how the situation was and be able to have an overview of how things were, but just a short one. Can you be able to see?
Yes.
So you can be able to see this was during the long rain season, and quite a lot of flooding was experienced almost in the whole country, where we have 47 counties, and out of these counties or regions, we had 43 of them getting affected. On this video, you can be able to see on the top right corner, the areas being displayed as they took an aerial view of how the country was in general. You can see the dams were overspilling, the rivers were all over bursting their banks. And in some instances, we can be able to see even settlements near the rivers, and they were quite affected. Yeah. And we can be able to tell the destruction was quite a lot, and it wasn't an easy time because it is something that has not been experienced in the recent times. It is something that was maybe experienced 10 years ago, not even 10, more than 20 years ago, when there was El Nino in 1998. And so this time it was quite overwhelming, even as last year there were indications that there would be El Nino, but what happened, it didn't come as it was said to be. And so people had moved out because of the saying that there would be the El Nino, but later they moved back when the rains didn't come. And they were caught off guard. People are caught off guard since the rains came at such a time that no one was expecting so. And after that quite a short overview of how it was, I will go right into the presentation. It's a short one to show on the major issues around the floods, that was even the destructions, and what are the outcomes, or what has people come to do to be able to maybe become more resilient or to cope up with the situation, and also recovery. Yeah. So as I said earlier, the long rain season, normally it's March and April, and this time it rained from March up to around mid of May or even late May. And then according to ReliefWeb, this one, the data, it's 43 counties out of the 47, as I said, and then a lot of families were affected and a lot of individuals, according to National Disaster Operations Center. And around 300 lives were lost. People were injured. People were left missing, maybe washed away by the floods. Schools were also marooned and very much affected. And the school semesters or terms, normally the second term, which begins in May. So it was also affected by these floods, where they had even to delay with 2 weeks to reopen the schools. And also it is something that is attributable to climate change. So the floods that we experienced, of course, it was due to the sudden and intense rainfall. And Also, we could see some of the areas, maybe it was due to poor drainage, especially because of poor development plans or poor drainage systems. And also rivers, which were now overflowing and bursting the banks into the neighboring areas. Yeah. So what was able to be done before the floods? There were early warnings, of course, but because the issue of the El Nino that was to be there last year did not come, people who had just moved back to their homes were now caught off guard. So even these early warnings, people took them lightly. And the meteorological department was, of course, giving the weather forecast and flood alerts before the rains. But the people have just gotten back to their homes and they were taking it lightly, knowing that last year they said there would be El Nino. It never came. And so this one was not also maybe going to be there. But then now it came to be a reality. And so despite this, most of people were caught in the low-lying areas and they had now to be moved again amidst the floods and the rains, heavy rains. And then there was also a lot of awareness by Red Cross and other departments, even the government, on how to be able, if you're caught into floods, maybe you're driving on the roads, maybe you're in the house, what can you be able to do? Have a bag with an emergency kit, medicine, some 2 clothes to change if you're caught, and then you could move with such and to a safer area. And then we have got installation or construction of flood barriers. This was done in some of the counties, like Kipe in some areas. They were able to have the slam dams. It's a technology from Netherlands where they were able to install them and they shielded them from the overflowing rivers or the rising waters. Then there was, of course, mobilization of resources by the government, by the institutions such as the international organization, Rotary International, the church as well, and people of goodwill generally. They were able to mobilize resources to be able to counter this and to give the necessary items, the basic needs to those who are now camping in different safer areas. What the destruction was like from these floods, of course, we've seen around 300 lives were lost. Many people were displaced, and this comes when you don't know where to go. All of your property has been destroyed, then there's trauma. And we saw also destruction of food crops and loss and damage of property and infrastructure. Roads were quite impassable. We could see people cut off from basic needs, from food, where the urban setup, you need food to be brought into your town, and then this was really compromised, and even seeking of medical aid to go to hospital, expectant mothers. It was quite a challenge. And then we also saw landslide in those prone areas of mudslides. There was, of course, water rationing because of the destruction of even the treatment plants in these areas that were facing and because of even the overflow of the rivers, that is where the water is tapped from, and so it was quite affected also. So people downstream or even people in their houses would lack water. Yeah, so it's raining a lot, but there's plenty of water, but no, you don't have potable water for use in your house. And so this brings up the issue of also poor sanitation and waterborne diseases, because amidst the floods, there was now cholera outbreaks and other waterborne diseases. Then we have the road closures because of the damage of the roads, and even some parts the railway lines as well. And then education was affected. They were not able to reopen schools on time. and even transport from their homes to the school was interrupted. And so there was a delay of around 2 weeks when they came now to open in mid-May when the rains had subsided a bit. So you can be able to see the food destruction that was caused and left in some of the farms, even the rice plantations. There was quite distractions. We can see the schools where we have got collapsing of even the classroom walls. So such a school reopening on time was quite a challenge because now they have to build up again and recover from this and get all the furniture and even the school stationery that was destroyed. We have got another picture showing the flooding of the roads, so transport was interrupted. On this other photo, you can be able to see where a village was swept. This was the major incident amidst the flooding issue, where at Maimahiu, it's an escarpment and also there are a lot of valleys. So the rains, as they rained, and there was a blockage on a tunnel. That is what was said on the railway tunnel. So as it continued raining, the water was held up, but later found its way and bursted and went washing away everything downstream, the homes. And so it left around 70 people dead in this area, and some even they were not accounted for, they went missing, and it was so sad. Even early this month, June, there was still recovery, and even now resettling the people who lost their livelihoods and their homes. Amidst this, we can see the roads getting cut off and flooding on the roads. It becomes like a river, but it's generally a place where it's normally dry, but during this time, it was now quite like a moving river. Same scenario of school getting destroyed by the floods, and then we had mudslides where the movement of the land and blockage of the roads and even leading to loss of life as well in those mudslide prone areas like Murang'a and Kiambu, that is in Central Highlands. Then we have got you can see here in the last photo, tree plantation, where there was a landslide as well. And so this brings up the issue of intercropping or even having trees and intercropping this into sustainable farming practices. Of course, this one, I call it response, but it was like impulse, the impulse reaction, reaction after something happens. So the government initiated the process of demolition of buildings on riparian zones. And as you can see in this photo, it's a slum area. So even the opposition, of course, was quite raising questions on whether this should happen across all areas. But now it seems that the targeted areas were only the slums, but we have got major developments in riparian zones. There are those rules on riparian zone that you're not supposed to have any development near a river. It should be depending on the width of the river, it should be 6 meters away or even 30 meters away. So we can be able to see these people, of course, were affected so much by the floods since they are just near the rivers. And so the government initiated this after the floods to be able to now rehabilitate these areas and ensure there is no settlement in such areas. So in the recovery journey, of course, limited funding and resources is a challenge. We could see how problematic it was to even rescue people, getting the helicopters, and those who are affected could get themselves and rescue themselves in the communities, and say that they have not seen any government support for like a day or two. So it was quite a challenging journey where thankfully the international organizations like Red Cross came in to help, and limited funding, of course, and resources, and misappropriation of money is quite a challenge with the management of these resources, because the fund that is normally kept aside for such emergencies, they normally see like it will never happen. And so the government and all the people are caught unawares of such disasters. So we have got also the challenge to do with inadequate disaster preparedness measures, where now we see people going out there to rescue without enough gears. They're going to retrieve bodies without any measures that, and they could get as well injured in such cases. And so what happened later is, of course, there have to be infrastructure repair for the roads and the railway and all the destroyed facilities. Then also rebuilding, of course, getting houses for shelter for those who are displaced, as well as there was support from organizations and well-wishers, international organizations. I am part of Rotary International, where there was a lot of mobilization of funds to be able to rebuild for those who are affected. And of course, even because those who are affected, even the school children lost their uniforms, their books, so they had to get a lot of things to be able to go back into their normal lives. And
thank you very much, Nelly. We would want you to wrap up now because yes.
Okay. So I am just finishing of course, the early warning system, the mitigations. These are the slam dams I was talking about. They were able to be deployed in some of the counties, and they were able to help shield the people. And we also have the tree growing day, and even measures to be able to prevent such other occurrences in the future. Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Nelly, for this very informative response on the issues around sustainable consumption. If we live sustainably, this kind of situations would not happen. And maybe this also highlights what happens when we turn a blind eye to sustainable consumption. Thank you so much. And next, we would like to invite Annie Banda from Malawi to give us another quick overview of what is happening in the front line in Malawi. And if we may also stick to time, maybe we'll also be able to finish on time and have everybody sharing their presentations. So let's keep it short and let's keep it to time. So over to you, Nelly. Annie, sorry.
Thank you, Gabriel. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Annie Stephen Banda, and I am from Malawi at Ebahai. So when I was approached, I collaborate with the National Youth Council on Climate Change organization on issues of environment, and also as a youth leader in my community of Lilongwe, the Baha'i community, but of course, overall community. So the topic that I was shared to prepare something on, I think Nelly has pretty much give the picture of the exact same thing that happened in Malawi, in the southern part, a year ago, where we also had devastating consequences after the tropical cyclone Freddy that happened around March in 2023. and a good number of the population in almost 80% of the region, the districts in the region were affected. And a year and some months later, we still have people in camps. We still have roads that have not been maintained yet. We still have schools that are broken down or that were damaged, and kids or pupils not going to school because the facilities haven't been restored as yet. And according to the report, or a report that was documented by the Office of the President and the Cabinet Department of Disaster and Management Affairs, the floods that were caused by Cyclone Freddy affected about 80% of the population in the southern region. And the recovery plans are still underway and will go a long way because the resources that are required to be able to mitigate or as a response to the needs on the ground are far from being made. So in the spirit of sharing from the spiritual perspective of how we can look at this sustainable consumption, allow me to share my very brief presentation on that, based on a statement on the environment that was prepared for a conference some time back. So
Hi, and we can't hear you anymore if you are speaking. Okay.
Okay. Sorry, I was opening my opening my presentation, so I didn't know that you already have everything in place there. Okay, so from the presentation that I did on sustainable consumption, a faith response to the climate and biodiversity crisis. You can go to the next page, please. Can you hear me? All right, so in the initial opening remarks, we say achieving a sustainable. This is a statement by the Universal House of Justice, which is the international governing body of the Baha'i Faith, was just responding to the issue surrounding the sustainable consumption to say that achieving sustainable consumption and true prosperity is one of the major environmental and social challenges of our time. And as the Universal House of Justice has put it, why is the vast majority of the world's peoples sinking ever deeper into hunger and wretchedness when wealth on a scale and dreamed of by the pharaohs, the Caesars, or even the imperialist powers of the 19th century is at the disposal of the present arbiters of human affairs? So that's the question that can trigger thoughts and different ideas. So consumption, in our terms, refer to the use of that wealth. Our use of materials, energy, and services to meet our needs and desires. There is obviously a gradient in consumption, from the poverty of inadequate consumption to the abuses of overconsumption. The challenges of consumption are that as the population has grown, increasing per capita consumption and our technological capacity to produce and consume more has also developed. We have begun to reach planetary limits, threatening the natural resource base and ecological systems. We also have serious social challenges due to the unjust distribution of wealth and consumption, threatening social sustainability. So this was hinging on the Baha'i principle of extreme, or the elimination of extremes of wealth and poverty, that the gap is too wide. So as long as the gap is as wide as that, we may have challenges in mitigating this social sustainable, or achieving the the sustainable consumption. Excessive consumption could be described as a moral illness, and I think to this we can all have we can agree to this, or even have to begin to see why it is being referred to as a moral illness. So the need for conspicuous consumption to demonstrate wealth, power, and superiority becomes an emotional trap, and can lead to a diagnosed condition such as shopping. Just as an example, but there could be so many examples to testify to that. Consumption has also become a collective economic addiction. Of course, it is very necessary to keep the economy turning, to maintain employment and generate wealth, but there has to be a limit, and also the purpose. We have to redefine the purpose of generating that wealth as individuals, as institutions, but also as organizations, as a people. An important dimension of the problem of consumption are the extremes of wealth and poverty. The fact that some consume too much while others do not have enough. It is estimated that the richest 20% of the world population consumes 80% of the world's resources. So I spoke about the gap being too wide. That already is a huge problem. There is a global competition for limited resources, with the wealthy having the purchasing power to outbid the poor, even for essentials. And I think that is a very good example of why we have the extreme, some people having to lack the basic necessities while others have in abundance and contribute to the higher percentage of the waste, or food waste in that manner. So on the testimonies of frontline communities, when we turn the blind eye, like I said earlier, that it's exactly as Nelly in her presentation has explained the effects of the floods that happened in Kenya, which we share in the same scenarios of what happened in Malawi around March last year with the cyclone Freddy that devastated mostly the southern region of the country. So how do we champion?
You have 2 minutes to go.
Okay, that is noted. So maybe we can go to the last two, I think. Yes. Sustainable consumption can also then refer to the need to stay within the limits of the global sustainability of resources. It includes the concept of equitable sharing within and between generations. Consumption requires wealth, so that the distribution of wealth is an important component of sustainable consumption, along with the total worth of materials. Consumption also changes meaning and value along the spectrum from absolute poverty to great wealth. But also for the poor, consumption often means survival and the meeting of basic needs for food, clean water, shelter, health, and education. The amount of acceptable consumption is relative, or should be defined by scientific or economic measures of the amount of wealth available. All in all, desirable consumption being knowledge, having the knowledge, education, art, and industry, and all those things that contribute to the welfare of society. So it's not about just one group of people, but the whole society in general. And finally, in conclusion, and I quote, the Baha'i scriptures teach that as trustees of the planet's vast resources and biological diversity, humanity must seek to protect the heritage of future generations, see in nature a reflection of the divine, approach the earth, the source of material bounties, with humility, temper its actions with moderation, and be guided by the fundamental spiritual truth of our age, the oneness of humanity. Thank you for your attention. I think that marks the end of this small presentation, just to echo what sustainable consumption looks like in the Baha'i
Thank you.
perspective.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much for even your concluding remarks on that. As humanity, we have that responsibility to take care of everything that is around us. Thank you. We would like to now move on to the third panelist in this category, and this will be Sipho Gahle Nguni from KZN in South Africa. He is a student and a youth who has a lot at stake as far as the future is concerned. So I would want to invite Sipho to make a presentation looking at what happens when we don't take care of nature. Over to you, Sipho.
Greetings to you all. Do I have to turn on the camera?
Yes, you may turn on your camera.
Greetings to you all. My name is Sipho Gahle, and a student from UKZN, chairperson of the Climate Justice Network. And from my perspective of what happens when we don't take care of the environment, just a few weeks ago we had a tornado that hit us in KZN. We on the 3rd of June, it was on Monday around 4:30 in the evening, where it costed 12 lives and left 7,000 people homeless, and 1,200 families had lost their houses. So it all comes back to what role do we have in taking care of the environment? Many times people will look at the next person, what they can do. So as a University of KwaZulu-Natal, we took the initiative from last year to open an organization that takes care of the environment while teaching other people and going out in the environment, taking care of the different places where the dump sites and wherever there is dirt, turning places into parks, turning places that are abandoned and full of dirt, and making them look healthy and alive again. So it all comes back to, once we ignore taking care of the environment, that's where all these things like floods and all those things take place. I had an incident in Eastern Cape where they complaining that they are having floods regularly because it's all our actions at the end of the day, the infrastructure that we are building, everything that we are doing. These are the things that are causing harm to the environment, with us turning a blind eye to taking care of the environment. Global change, global warming, all these are the effects of our own doings. So what I can say from my perspective and the perspective of the organization is that it all starts with us. We started a campaign.
You may turn off your camera, Sipho, so that we can hear you clearly. It's okay. Now your bandwidth seems to be very small, so may you please turn off your camera and just speak.
Campaign at campus we have planted. We find that most of the time people I didn't get the last part.
Saying you may turn off your camera because you are breaking off.
Oh yes, I think it's the network over here. So as I was saying, we started an initiative of planting a tree, where we go around telling people in schools, and mostly in primary schools, because it all starts with the new generation. Once you get it into them that this is what you must do, so they grow up with it, taking care of the environment. We are planning on going to other schools also, starting gardens and all those kind of places. And we are trying to work with other organizations. We're still looking for funding because we are still a small organization that is growing, that is willing to collaborate with other organizations so that we can get more information on how to do the work better and try to find ways to better take care of the environment. So we are planning on taking the initiative again, as I was saying, of going to each school and putting 3 different bins. So these bins will be divided into 3. One is for paper, one is for glass, one is for plastic. So this will encourage the youth that it is important to keep aside waste in different categories so that when we grow up and at home, we can also encourage others to do the same. So as an organization, we are requesting and humbling ourselves to other organizations that please try to work with us. We are willing to work with you all too in taking care and teaching others on how to take care of the environment, especially those in the rural areas, because most of the time information is shared in townships and disregarding the people in the rural areas. I think that will be it. I don't have much to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sipho, for that brief and also for sharing what damage has happened due to the issues surrounding the climate crisis. And also thank you for the initiatives that you are taking. And I do believe that around the table, we have people who can also collaborate with you from the faith perspective, as well as from the communities where we live. This was just to highlight what happens when we turn a blind eye to sustainable consumption, when nature comes back to hit back on us, and that we would need to do better in terms of our responses. Now, I would like to invite the last group of panelists to come on board, and I would want to give them time in 2 phases. The first phase, we would make a presentation of 5 minutes each. Then we'd have an interaction, and then we'll give you some time to then wrap up your presentations. So I would call the presenters in this order. We would have Bishop Dr. Emily Onyango from All Africa Conference of Churches, AFAN CJ, and we'll have Sheikh Malik Arafat, and then we'd have Professor Ndiritu, and then we'd have Busisiwe Mganela coming on board in that order. And 5-minute presentations to start off with, and then we would have a discussion, and then we'll give you a time to wrap up at the end. So I'll call upon Lord Bishop or Madam Bishop Onyango to come on board and give us your presentation, please.
Thank you so much. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you clearly, Bishop.
Yeah, so mainly from the Christian perspective, our faith and beliefs are really important for our action. And as had been said earlier, the Christians believe that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. And in Genesis, God gives us authority to take care of creation. I think one of the problems is that sometimes there's misinterpretation of scripture. People have misinterpreted scripture that when you are told to have dominion, then it means you can do whatever you want with creation. One of the things that we are trying to emphasize is proper interpretation of scripture. We are called upon to be stewards of creation. And therefore, urging our Christians to really take care of creation, take action, and encourage behavioral change. One of the areas that I want to talk about is the area of deforestation. I think we have experienced deforestation in Kenya, maybe first of all by the rich people who are cutting down traditional trees and selling them. However, there is a big issue because many people also cut trees because of poverty. One of the issues that the Christian have to deal with is the issue of poverty, which leads women to cut trees. I think in Kenya, and I think in many parts of Africa, women do most of the work in agriculture, although the decisions are made elsewhere. But because of poverty, women have to cut down trees. So I think as a Christian faith, we have to address this issue of poverty and see how women can use more appropriate technology. And tree planting is one of the things that the Anglican Church in Kenya and many churches and even the government emphasizes on. But when I look at Western Kenya, where I'm also a bishop, there are cultural practices which discourage women from planting trees. So I think dealing with some of these negative cultural practices, because although we are happy people are planting trees, women who participate in agriculture because of negative culture do not participate in planting of trees. And therefore, I think we have to deal with some of our beliefs. Then pollution of the waters and the rivers. Lake Victoria has been polluted and we have seen the dying of fish and the water being polluted so that it cannot be used. And it's also on two levels. The industries which throw their waste in the lake, how do we address this? And on the individual level, where individuals pollute the waters so that we cannot use them. And I think the church has a duty to work both with the polluters, the industries, and the individual point of view. I want to focus on agriculture because agriculture is the mainstay of the people in Kenya. And women actually in the participate in the small-scale farming to produce food. I think there's a debate in Kenya over the GMOs and the use of seeds which you cannot reuse and the effect of that on small-scale farmers. Many of us are doing away with our traditional seeds. And I think there's a debate there, and the church really tries to focus on sustainable agriculture so that we don't lose our seeds and so that we also don't lose our livelihoods. There is the issue of drought and floods, which make people not really produce adequate food. So climate smart agriculture is a challenge that the churches really talk about. One of the issues in Kenya has been, for example, the large-scale farmers like flower farms, which use a lot of chemicals affecting people, destroying the soil. And these people are producing flowers, selling them expensively while destroying the environment and destroying the lives of the people. I think on an international level, there are times when Christians have even called for boycott of some of the companies and some of the products that are used. So I can just say that we are trying to really look at two sides of the coin. But for me, we have to address the larger issue of poverty. And as an individual, looking at the plight of women who are the agriculturalists, who are the poorest people, and how these issues affect them and how we can holistically, you know, help them so that we come with sustainable consumption. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bishop, for keeping to time. We will come back to your presentation with some of the points that would want to take the discussion further. And now I'd like to invite Sheikh Arafat to come in and give us the Muslim perspective on sustainable consumption. Over to you, sir.
Good day.
Yes, you can hear you. Please proceed.
Yes, Gabriel, if you could open my video from your side, if it's possible. It doesn't open from my side.
Okay, you may try to open it from your side quickly.
All right, there it goes. Thank you so much. Good day, everybody. My name is Malik Arafat, and I was asked to give a perspective of Islam regarding the matter of sustainable consumption. And I was asked to, also share the scripture as to what Islam says about all these matters. So I prepared a little document which I hope that you'll be able to download from the chat section of the presentation. Basically, it's just a brief as to what Islam, the position of Islam regarding this very important matter. I will not touch on all the matters, but just to give a perspective, I will say that Islamic economics is founded on moral principles based on Islamic law. The major priority of the goals of Islamic law are about the protection of life, intellect, faith, lineage, and property. Thus, matters of sustainable consumption and production are clearly linked to the goals of Islamic law because of the need for their operations to be based on moral or spiritual qualities. Modern capitalism and its secular economics is founded on principles like interest, debt, and consumerism, which conflict with Islamic teachings, particularly on matters related to commerce, property, and markets. Despite recognizing the devastation of the environment and ecology, the basis of capitalist economic activity is the accumulation of profit and its management. The teachings of Islam most often emphasize the inherent ethical and spiritual dimensions of the SCP that includes the preservation of the purity of nature and its different environments. However, what is most important is that mankind must show gratitude and contentment while rejecting greed and excessive materialism. So basically what we're saying here really is that, our personal experiences with nature is what is really important here, how we deal with the position of understanding the role God has given us in this world. In regard to the above mentioned principles of the Maqasid, there are two other essentials that are critically important in observation of sustainable consumption production: to increase public interest or common good, and to reduce anything tending to disturb, harm, or corrupt. And from here, then I quote a number of principles like the nature of God, who God is, and what He says in the Quran. And when He says, "And your God is one God, there is no deity except Him, the entirely merciful, the especially merciful." Which, and basically, if you take from this statement, you ask yourself that when you're born, you come into this world, He has not charged us for that. He's given us fruit, vegetables, the air to breathe. He has given us everything that we see in creation, all of that for free. He is asking He's not charging us for that, except all He asks for us is to worship Him. And really, that is the only responsibility we have towards him. And worshiping him means actually that we should acknowledge the fact that all that is on the earth is at our disposal as people. And therefore, Islam says, that is what is called, an amana, a trust, that, he has given us a trust to take care of all that he has given us. And he says, those who faithfully observe their trust in the covenants. In other words, he takes highly those people who are faithful in that way. And he has given us the role to be stewardships, to be stewards, vicegerents, trustees in this world. And, and there's a verse that says, and remember when the Lord said to the angels, verily, I'm going to place a vicegerent on earth. In other words, not even the angels are vicegerents of all of creation. It's mankind who is the vicegerent. And therefore, it is our responsibility to make sure that we deal properly with the world. But also, in the view of Islam, we are accountable. And in the hereafter, we will be accountable to whatever that we're doing in this world. And the chapter to that, the verse to that is where he says, the present worldly life is nothing but a pastime and play, but the abode of the hereafter is truly alive if they but knew. In other words, when we go back to where we come from, for those who believe in the hereafter, we will account for all the things that we'll be doing on earth. And the matter of wasatiyah, and Dr. Omar alluded to this matter earlier on, where he says, God says that we should not be extravagant in everything that we do. Thus, another aspect which is very important is that the world is in balance, and everything has its balance. And whatever that we do, we should avoid creating an imbalance. And God says we will set up the just balance on the day of rising, and no self will be wronged in any way, even if it be more than the weight of a mustard seed. Will produce it where sufficient and as they reckon. In other words, if you think that whatever that you're destroying or wasting on earth is gone forever, it is not true, because everything that God has created on the day of rising, it will re-emerge, and therefore you will have to account for it. So for a Muslim, our understanding is much deeper in the sense that being of waste or doing waste in the world, in whatever form that you're doing, whether it's corporates or individuals or governments, we are responsible for it, and we will account for it. And God warns us for that, we should not be corrupt. He says in the facade, he says, and those who violate Allah's covenant after it had been affirmed, break whatever ties Allah has ordained and to be maintained, and spread corruption in the land, it is they who will be condemned and will have the last or the worst abode in the hereafter. So this is how strong, God takes the matter of, breaking the covenant that is given us as caretakers, as stewards of the world, that, he will take us, make us accountable for that. On the earth, there's also, when we live on the world, those of us who are in charge of the world, who are leaders, it is imposed on us. It is imposed on us to have, legal aspirations in terms of dealing with this matter for purposes of fairness, moderation, merit, equality, etc., etc. And really, I'd like to, for purposes of time, just to stop at that point, and we'll deal with other matters moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sheikh, for that. We'll definitely cycle back and allow you to give your closing remarks and even answer some of the questions. Now I'd like to move on to Professor Ndiritu. Professor John Ndiritu, speaking from the Brahma Kumaris perspective. Over to you, Professor. We can see your presentation, but we cannot hear you.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Thank you very much. So I'll try to run through this in 5 minutes or 6 minutes. So Brahma Kumaris. So who are the Brahma Kumaris? So we are a spiritual organization about 80-something years old. And the idea is to get people experience greater way of being through inner peace and universal values. And it's about something we call soul consciousness, that everyone, the human being, is that being of consciousness who is actually eternal and occupies the body and then acts. So all of us are actors around. And our approach to sustainable consumption is therefore based on these fundamental principles. And in brief, what we have done or come up with some years ago is, 10 things about the inner self or consciousness that relate very much to sustainable consumption. And the idea is that we have to deal with this issue, from where it starts. So, and not simply deal with the symptoms. And we find that, the real, very deeper issue you're dealing with is the loss of spiritual power of individuals, of communities, of the world. That is why things are out of balance. That is why the way we are using natural resources is not as we could, although we want to do better. So humanity is spiritually depleted. And the aim of the Brahma Kumaris is to say, okay, let's become spiritually empowered. And the things we want to do, the technologies we have for us to make the change we need to make, will happen in a very easy way, in a very natural way. So there are these 10 ways. And in brief, we say one of them is, live simply. And when you use our mental, emotional, and physical resources wisely and carefully based on our needs rather than desires, then we can work much better. We can utilize what we need much better, much more easily without overconsumption. And the other principle is be unlimited. So by connecting with our spiritual essence, going beyond artificial divisions of gender, culture, etc., then it will be easier for us to think about everyone, everything as one community, and therefore the energy we have, the way we are going to approach the use of resources will be accordingly. Then we have this principle of opening the heart. So practicing compassion, forgiveness, and unconditional love for the self and others, to heal the shattered world, respecting life. So recognizing the uniqueness, wonder, and beauty of our own being enables us to treat ourselves, others, animals, and nature with consideration and care. The other one, which is also connected with the previous ones, is to be positive. It's quite a deep thing in the Brahma Kumaris, because we understand the idea that your thought is a vibration which is very subtle but very powerful, impacts on so many things. And another one is to walk the talk. So when I intend or want to do something, or when I'm saying this should happen, and I need to be one of the people trying to do it in the best way I can. And that comes when I empower myself. And it's like what? I empower myself based on the understanding that I am like a creator of my own conditions. The situations that I find myself in are somehow very connected with what I've done in the past. And therefore, if I start doing things in a certain way now, I can help create a better condition for myself and for others. But for that to happen, I need to empower myself. And another principle is to do with food. And, we know that plant-based diet is much better sustainable. A world with plant-based diet would be much more sustainable than it is, where lots of people do not have this diet. Some of the ideas that you encourage. And following our dream, which means, being quite clear about what you want to achieve, irrespective of maybe what so many others may be thinking or feeling, as long as it's not impacting on others in any adverse manner, then, you know, have that determination to follow that dream and to achieve it. But I think all of that, all the 9 or the 10, the 9 previous ones come with feeding the soul. So meditation, prayer, and our main focus is meditation. So those 10 ways to change the world are in the form of workshops that are available on our site, and I'll share that later. And so we can help and empower everyone around in Africa, globally, in relation to all those 10 ways. We also take practical action. So the Brahma Kumaris has done lots of work regarding on renewable energy. So there's a 1 megawatt renewable energy plant in one of our headquarters in India. We also do lots of things regarding planting trees. And one of the recent projects started in India, although it is a global project, has planted 1.65 million trees since 2022. Something else that we do is what we call yogic farming. What is yogic farming? So you know that your consciousness or our consciousness impacts on the elements of matter. So yogic farming is where we apply this to enhance crop production. And I've actually done some experiments on this. We have this figure here showing some people meditating on a field. So at my work at the University of the Witwatersrand, I carried out an experiment with 3 honors level students. So we set up an experiment on the roof of the building where I work. And then we are trying to find out if you meditate on some of these and leave the others. Quite a well-controlled experiment. We did make a difference. And we found that actually meditation makes a big difference. You know, the average size of the carrots we grew was 10% higher. The nutrition content was also much better. But these are some of the things we do in brief. The meditation itself is based on this awareness that, you know, who one is that being of light that is somewhere in the center of the brain, a being of light. And one can also connect with God in the form of a being of light. And these 2 images are showing that. That's how one draws that energy that leads to a sustainable inner power, because we need to have sustainable spiritual resources to deal with the sustainable, you know, external resources that we are dealing with. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof, for that detailed but short presentation, and we will discuss that further on as well. And I would now like to invite to speak Busisiwe Mganqela as the final speaker in this category. Over to you, Busi.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everyone. And I'm going to be speaking on African religion regarding sustainable consumption and animal welfare. Our religion is based on the cultural traditions and which use animals as ceremonies and sacrifices at times. But then we know that during the ancient times and our ancestors' times, there was sustainable consumption of meat, where meat was only eaten only on ceremonies like when the children have passed at school, during Christmas or on Sundays. But now you'll find that every meal has got meat, and meat is being eaten 3 times a day, even if it's even more than that, and which is not in moderation, as we've heard other speakers speaking of sustainable consumption, where we look at moderation and no greed. And you'll find that also with our African tradition, there were certain parts of meat that are not eaten by everyone. So you'll find that certain parts are for the elderly, and there are parts that are for boys and women. But these days, you'll find that people are eating everything every time. So how then the African tradition uses animals for the ceremonies. This is a information that is passed from generation to generation, because African tradition takes animals as sacred, and they consider them very much important in their traditions, so that then there is no submission of pain before and during slaughter. Animals are being given, say, for instance, if there's going to be a ceremony that is going to be done, that animal is given a name, and that animal is praised, so that then it can carry a certain message to the ancestors. And praising it, it is making it calm, so that then there is no stress. And you will find that during the ceremony, there's ululating, where women will be ululating when the animal bellows. So signifying that the ceremony has been accepted by ancestors, whereas in another culture, the bellowing of an animal, it signifies pain. So the African tradition will make it a point that there is no pain, an animal is being kept as comfortable as possible, and that responsibility is being given to an elderly or an adult that is pure. Because then if one now has to slaughter, then they have to abstain, they have to fast, and so that then the whole week they are being set as pure, such that then they are able to be responsible for slaughtering, so that there is no pain that is inflicted into the animal. So again, the welfare of the animal is very much important in African tradition, because also if you look well after your animals, it means then you are a person who's looking well after their family, and the wealth is being looked at that. And again, they also follow the Christian beliefs of saying God put humans to be the custodians of life, and therefore all life is very much important. And no caging of animals is promoted. Then they are let to be free, and they're having to be grazing in camps. They are not using antibiotics. African tradition is using herbs and medicinal substances to take care of or prevent illnesses with their animals. So what I also would like to indicate is the fact that it was a belief before that during your harvest of your grains, where you had to put your seed for the next season, the African people were using a hand of a baboon, which is called isandla semfene. And as you know, that we were people that were hunting. And if then they could find a baboon that has for a reason died, maybe it was attacked by another animal, then they will keep that hand, and then that hand will be dried. And when it comes now to the harvesting period, then the seed will be put under that head, with the belief that the following year, when you plant again, you will have a bumper harvest, and then you will have like a much yield. So they were putting a very much importance on animals. But then because of people that now that made things differently, where they would kill now the baboons, and then there was an enforcement of law to say that you must have a license to hunt, and then that IKS has moved away, and now people are using seashells for the very same indication of keeping this hand of a baboon to with a belief that the following year there will be a bumper harvest. I think African tradition really it plays an important part, where they put in an emphasis on animals to say sometimes they are being taken as a part of the family, where they are being kept for a longer period and not being used for commercial purposes, because then they have got a certain significance within the family. I think I will stop there. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vusi, for that brief but very detailed also intervention. Now we would want to open up this session for discussion. I think in the next 10 minutes, we should have any people who have questions. I noted Gaia earlier on who wanted to make an intervention. So if you are still on the call, may you please go ahead and ask your question. Then would also tell us which panelist you are directing your question to, or if it is a general question, it will be as such. Any questions to any of our panelists? Let's show by raising our hands, and so that we could know how many people would want to speak, and then we'll give you an opportunity to speak. Okay, maybe whilst people are still thinking through what they would want to ask, I would want to just have one question to direct it to Bishop Onyango. You mentioned the issue of stewardship within the Christian faith. I just wanted to find out, how do you promote this stewardship within the Christian faith?
I believe that as Christians, God has given us responsibility to take care of creation. And as it has been said, we will finally be accountable for our actions. And therefore, as Christians and as a Christian leader, we conscientize the Christians on their responsibilities. Because by the end of the day, they will be answerable to God on what they do with creation. And Christians are also called to work for justice, you know, and that is the main teaching of the Christian faith. And therefore, Christians have to speak out, and to speak out to individuals who are polluters or who are interfering with the environment. So I think when we are talking of stewardship, we are talking of challenging people to be responsible, because finally they will be accountable for what God has placed with them. The challenge to conscientize and to make people know what they are doing and their action matters, and also talks about justice. Thank you.
Thank you, Bishop. And I see Coral Vincent your hand is up. If you can unmute and make your intervention. You're still muted. If you may unmute first, then speak.
Okay, I wanted to talk to Tebu Nguni to say that I live in Durban, and I'm a good gardener for a long time, and I teach people to grow vegetables organically. And so if I can help him, I'm happy to do so. But you have to remember that I am 92 years old now. So although I'm strong, I'm willing to teach, but I cannot look after gardens. Okay.
Thank you very much, Coral, for that. I do hope, Sipo, you are listening to that offer, and that you will take it up, and you will provide the energy, and Coral will provide the wisdom. So that's a good tech team in there. If you can also share your contact details, Coral, then we will be able to pass that on to Sipo. Thank you for that offer. And I would also, whilst we are waiting for other questions, I would also want to ask Professor Ndiritu. You mentioned the 10 ways in which the Brahma Kumaris would want people to live so that they are able to maintain a sustainable livelihood or sustainable life. I would want to particularly have a focus on if you would expand on the point where you said being positive, under maybe the crisis that we are living in, how do we go about living positively?
Yes, how do you go about living positively? I think one of the other things I mentioned is, spiritual empowerment, because if I'm not positive in any situation, it could be two people in the same situation. Something happens, but one person is going to respond in this way, another person will be so stressed, someone will be somewhere in between. But the question is, how come those differences are arising? It's because one person has that spiritual power, which means when something happens, it doesn't impact on me so much because I have, one of the things I might have is I have a certain perspective about it. The way I understand it is not the same way as someone else understands it. And we usually say that, if one is aware of oneself, as I mentioned there, one of the photos was talking about this being of light. If I'm actually aware that, this form which we call the body, we talk about the body is a human form, that I'm actually that entity that lives in this body, but that the more I learn about that other entity, which is a spiritual entity, and what it is made of, what its qualities are, what its powers are, because we usually say the nature of the human being is to be peaceful anyway. The nature of the human being is to be loving. The nature of the human being is to be powerful. The nature of the human being is to be what? The human being, actually, the actual being is eternal, doesn't change. But the actual basis of being empowered and being positive in all situations is that kind of practice, where I'm able to leave everything besides, I'm able to go within and connect with the true self. And that true self, then I think about it in terms of those qualities. And if I have that practice again and again, which is what we call meditation, then when a situation arises, that peace I've accumulated is what will be protecting me. That kind of thing. That's the approach that, we basically take. Briefly, that's how I can remain positive, and I can actually make others positive as well, in my energy, in that space.
Thank you very much, Prof, for that the level of being positive to impact others to be positive as well. In the absence of questions from the floor, I also have a question for Sheikh Arafat. Earlier on, I think Dr. Omari mentioned the issue of the balance, and also mentioned the issue of Khilafah. Would you want to elaborate further on those two aspects from a Muslim perspective?
Yes, thanks for the questions, Gabriel. I think it starts really from the position of Khilafah, because the concept of Khilafah is quite broad in Islam. One is that it really starts off when God Almighty says, announces that Adam, or man in this instance, has been given the responsibility of taking care of the creation. And this concept, appears not only in Islam, but we hear it as well in the Christian perspective as well, about stewardship. We also hear it amongst African religions, that man is seen as this man is like the micro of the macro, all of creation really. That's why for instance, as Khilafah, he has the capacity to change things or to create. For instance, you take ore and you turn it into gold or to iron. We make cars, we make videos, we make all these things. In other words, we are co-creators to God in that instance. So we've been, and no other form of creation has that capacity except men. Therefore, our responsibility is much higher than all of creation in terms of taking care of what God has created for us. Now, but then also because of this term of being Khilafah, God has given us the capacity of choice. So we have a choice to do good, or that we have the choice to do the opposite. And we find that we now see in this world in contemporary times the tendency to do what is not good, where people operate on the basis of greed or accumulation, selfishness, etc., and to the exclusion of other people and to the detriment of nature itself, where whatever that God has given us that is sacred for us to use has now become tools of mass consumption. So that is the one aspect of Khilafah in Islam. But the other aspect of Khilafah is really on a legal basis, where it is said that the Muslim community must be led by a person that is called the Khalif, who then becomes like the global ruler of Muslims. We can equate this to the Pope in Rome, who is regarded as the leader of the Christian world. Now, since the fall of the Khalif in 1924, the Muslim world has become broken into smaller states and is in disarray because of that. So there is no one singular voice coming out of the Muslim world. So these are the two major, aspects regarding Khilafat. So regarding balance, God mentions a lot about the issue of balance, both in this world and the hereafter. Balance means that whatever that you do, you've got to be able to, use it like in a scale, where, and all of this is in the divine principles for organizing the universe. God has, for instance, we're talking of climate change now, but we do know that historically climate has changed. It has never been constant. God in his book, in the book, he says, he created everything in a measure. In other words, the amount of water that is there globally will remain the same. There won't be more water than any other time, or in other words, that there will be ice in certain places, there will be mist, there will be the different forms of water will be there at all times. In some places there may be scarcity, but in some places there will be abundance. But it does not mean that the amount of water God has given us is diminished. It doesn't diminish. People are afraid that the amount of minerals that have been exploited in the past 300-400 years will be depleted. Yes, maybe in a particular area there'll be depletion, but God has made sure that that amount of ore will remain. So, for instance, if you take a slurry of water that passes in the Klip Rivier across in the Gauteng province of South Africa, you see in that slurry, a cross-section of it will show you how many years there's been a mineral exploration in the area. But we do know that over time, that slurry is going to end up becoming coal or diamonds or anything like that. So God is always replenishing the earth, no matter how much we may think we're destroying it. But also here is that our understanding about the Nizam, or the balance, is that it is also our responsibility to do good so that we are not wasteful for generations that are living with us and those that are coming after. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that explanation. And now moving on to Vusi. You mentioned that there is a loss of the indigenous knowledge systems within the different African setups. What can be done maybe to arrest the loss of the indigenous knowledge systems within different communities, so that we will have that information for future generations to help them to also be able to live sustainably?
Thank you, Gabriel. I think we need first to speak to the elderly that are there and those that are the custodians of indigenous knowledge to say if it could be documented, because that is where they don't believe in documentation, because they say the ideas will be like stolen. But then because we need and rely on this information that is fading, because you'll find that now it was most told like stories, there would be stories and being taken from generation to generation. And those that are not like being told now, those stories, they've lost it, or those that were told, they forget. So I think now with collaboration and also explaining that this information is not needed for people to be making money out of it. And even whenever it is written, then people must be like to say that this is coming from this person, so that they are able to be recognized for their indigenous knowledge. And you'll find that there's a lot of things that have gone wrong, where people would take this information and want to patent it and make it their own. And they would be like getting a lot of money out of it and commercializing the information that was meant to be helping people, so that people can be on the know of how things were done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vusi. And as we wind up now, do we have any other questions from the floor? Then we can allow each of the 4 panelists to just give us their conclusion in terms of their perspective. Okay. Thank you. I want to challenge Dr. Gumbo. Would you have anything to say? I think your name was mentioned, I think twice or thrice along some of the presentations. Would you like to share as well what it is that the AACC is also doing as a way of trying to contain sustainable consumption?
Thank you, my brother Gabriel. Thank you, everyone, for the wonderful presentations. My name is Tinashe Gumbo from the All Africa Conference of Churches. I don't think I need to add anything more from what on top of what Dr. Emily and Sheikh Kinyua said, because they are actually my leaders as we work within the Faith Actors Network for Climate Justice. So I think I will spoil the good presentations that were presented, but only to challenge you, only to challenge everyone to be active in these processes. I think we've been challenged by the faith presenters, all those who presented from the faith perspective. I think they've actually done a good job in terms of making sure that they convince us that we also have a role to play in this discussion. It's not something for the scientists, it's not something for the academia, but also for us as faith actors, because indeed the welfare of the earth is our welfare, and if we are able to protect it now, we'll also be able to do it for our generation. That's where the concept of sustainable consumption comes in, as connected to the broader discussion around sustainable development and other concepts. So I don't want to spoil the good presentations made by my leaders. Otherwise, thank you so much for creating this platform for the Faith Actors Network to share their perspectives from different angles. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mugumbo, for that. And I see we have Frank Mwelele who would want to have an intervention. So Frank, make it brief. And I would also invite Vincent Ngeno to also make another presentation. He has indicated that on the chat. So over to you, Frank.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Gabriel.
Good afternoon.
I'll talk about, sorry, I joined late, network issues in my area. I'll talk about, I think, promotion of indigenous knowledge, especially in my region where I come from. I think lately we've noted that technology has drifted communities from indigenous practices where we used to see elderly men and women gather, especially in the evenings, to talk about issues that affected the communities or how communities lived in the past. So there is this a transformation that has happened in our areas where the young ones are actually now tied or connected to internet as opposed to how it used to be in the past. So I think there should be, for us, we are looking at a situation where we need to blend or integrate the two. I think getting back to these communities and promote the sharing of indigenous knowledge with the young ones. I think we should find a way of blending modern technologies to the old systems. I think let me just contribute on that one. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Frank. And may I move over to Vincent before I give all the four presenters to wrap up. Vincent.
Hello, everyone. Hello.
Hello, yes, we can hear you. May you please proceed?
Okay, thank you. I am Vincent Ngeno from Kenya, National Youth Leader, Peace League Africa, where the Hassan Kinyua is the CEO of the foundation. First, I want to appreciate you for the discussion, though I joined late, regarding traditional African knowledge. Currently, I'm a student at Bomet University pursuing my master's in history. Actually, I'm working on indigenous knowledge in environmental conservation, as someone has presented before, and I acknowledge it. For example, let me give you some how this thing is applicable in my place, and I give you a challenge regarding the indigenous African knowledge. First, in our community, this thing is applicable a lot, whereby you see people, even when they are eating the fruits from the trees, they can't eat everything. They left some 1, 2, 3 fruits for future generation, or so that the seed can be planted or replanted by the nature. Another one, if you go to areas of fishing, you find people cannot fish the old fishes. They fish to an extent when they realize even they have not some small numbers remain, they can do some ceremonies to appease their gods or to appease their supreme being, so that the fish can can prosper, or the art of fishing can go on. And also, if you see the traditional African societies, for example, me in my place, I'm a Kipsigis. So if you see the traditional leaders, they have their own ways of protecting the nature. For example, if some people found to be polluting the environment, they were being banned, they were being punished, heavily punished. There was a council of elders to deal with those punishment, or to banish those people who are engaging in polluting or harming the environment. Also, you see, among the Kipsigis people, we have this rite of passage called the circumcision. So there were some trees to be used in those ceremonies, and the community was cutting those trees from cutting. And if one cut those trees, he was being cast away from the community, or she was being banished. That was some of the ways in which this community preserved the environment. Also, when you come to animal conservation, these people were not allowed someone to kill the pregnant animals, because it was the pregnant animal, meaning it ensure continuity of the generation of those animals. Another thing, they were not allowed to add the small animal. Those young animals, they were not being allowed to be killed or to be hunted. So they were doing control hunting. The problem comes is, we have a problem here when it comes to indigenous African knowledge. You have the people who are the custodian of this knowledge, the older people, they cannot give out the information. The custodian, they cannot give out the information. As so, what I am suggest is there is need for those documentation of those information, because also you remember people die with, as time goes, people are dying, the older people are dying. So they die with the information. Where can we get this information without keeping or without recording or without putting in writing in time? So I recommend that in case there is any effort to look for this information and be published or be documented, I commend very highly. Thank you for your time, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vincent, for your intervention and for also encouraging us to record the indigenous knowledge so that we keep it for posterity. Thank you very much, everyone. Now I'd like to invite the 4 panelists. We'll give you half a minute each to wrap up, and then would ask, maybe I would ask in this order, Bishop Emily first, and then John Diritu, and would have Vusi, and then would have Sheikh Arafat to give the last word, and then I would ask you also to come up with a word of prayer. And maybe before we get to that, just to say thank you to everyone for attending this meeting, and also thank you for making all the time. So we'll go in that order. We start from Bishop Emedy to give us your closing remarks.
Okay, thank you so much. As Christians, we believe that the earth is the Lord's. We are just stewards of His creation, and therefore we must act responsibly, because finally we'll be accountable. We have to conscientize people to take action, and through the call for justice, we must do advocacy work. Finally, as an African Christian, I must see how both my African and Christian faith comes into play. There are aspects of our culture which are not really helpful, are passed by time, yet we have also a lot of indigenous knowledge which we as Christians should incorporate in our action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bishop. Over to you, Prof.
Yes, so my concluding remarks. So I think this universal awareness of the self as the spiritual being, so that all of humanity is one global community of brother, sister souls, beings of consciousness, and with God as the parent of all souls, who is like a spiritual light from beyond, who is always available for all of us. I think this method of connecting and empowering the self is at the root of what we need to do in order for us to succeed in all of the sustainability challenges that we are facing as humanity, because we're using so many resources for other things, fighting, military, everything. If we are doing things in the right way, we would have so much of resources. So we need to spiritually empower ourselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prof. Over to you, Vusi.
Yes, thank you so much. What I would like to say is that we all believe that there is a supernatural out there. There is a God, or there is a being that is above all of us, and that would love us to coexist with each other, to coexist with nature, and embrace the spirit of Ubuntu in our daily endeavors. And we all believe that the earth is the center of all of us, and it is not made anymore. So let us keep it and look after the environment. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vusi. And over to you, Sheikh Arafat.
Yes, I would like to thank you for giving us this opportunity, Gabriel and the team of SAFSE, and all those who took part in here. Great thanks to all the beautiful words that you've said, the encouragement that you've given us. This is all a testimony that we are all from one God, and that we all have the responsibility to the earth is given us. So we'll end with a prayer in the name of God. And this prayer is like our Father in the Christian world. It is the most read prayer in Islam. In the name of God, most gracious, most merciful, praise belongs to God, Lord of the worlds, the Lord of mercy, the giver of mercy, master of the day of judgment. It is you we worship. It is you we ask for help. Guide us to the straight path, the path of those you have blessed, those who incur no anger and who have not gone astray. Amen. I thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much, everyone. And for those that are still on the call, may you please switch on your video so that we can also take a picture of everyone. And please note that we will be using these pictures also in most of our communication. So we would want to see all those who have been here. So if we can all put our cameras on and put on the best of all your smiles.
You're disabled.
I would ask the technical support to allow you to put your video on.
The host has disabled it.
Okay.
It still says that it has disabled my video.
This is Hagat Sabiala from Uganda. Do you see me? Am I there?
Okay, Odetu, are you taking pictures?
Gabriel, do you see me? Hagat Sabiala from Uganda. Or I'm not there.
We are trying to get you back on. Mainatu? Yes, there you are.
Yeah. Gabriel, this is Hagat Sabiala. Do you see me?
Yes, we can see you, Ajat.
Please confirm that I'm there.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just waiting for this photo to go and join the lunch here.
Thank you very
I'm
much,
still disabled.
everyone. And we do hope to host some more workshops on this sustainable consumption. So we'd let you know on the days and on the times. Thank you. God bless you all.
Please share this photo in the forum.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gabriel.
Thank you.
You disabled me.
Please share this photo. Please share this photo.